got the bad news.
Got the bad news that stuff was happening. And at that time, what was he? Mahmoud Mohammed.
It was Mahmoud Mohammed, and I remember there's one gentleman by the name of Hezekiah Yugi. I think he was DC in that part of the world.
So DC, Hezekiah Yugi was DC Nakuru.
Yes, I think Yusuf Haji was PC, if I'm not wrong, around that same time.
And then Mahali Mohammed was he a captain at that point?
I'm not sure what he was. Mahmoud Mohammed, it's after that Mahmoud Mohammed, if you remember, rose, yes. But he was in the Air Force, if I get it right.
Yes.
And I think the general in charge at that point, I think, was Mulingi, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, it was.
Yes. And the problem was at the Air Force. It did cost the Air Force commander his job, and in fact, he was on trial. I think he was even jailed, if I'm not wrong.
A lot of coverage here, page 2 to 13, 19, 20, and 44 is all about the late President Daniel Toroitich arap Moi. The front bigger picture there, of course, is people milling to go and view the body.
Right. Of course, we know that, of course, as Trick said, 100,000 people, approximate number of Kenyans who had viewed former President Moi's body by yesterday. And of course, we're going to see a lot more today. It was interesting that quite a number of people traveled from around the country then to come into Nairobi for the viewing. So again, today, of course, is the final day of viewing, 8 to 5 p.m. There'll be viewing of the body as Kenyans pay their last respects. Of course, we know that quite a number of roads will be closed. We'll be giving you details about that in a short while also. Dignitaries, also arriving. We've got sitting and retired heads of state, AU and EU representatives. They will jet in. I think some of them started coming in yesterday. We'll see a lot more coming in today that will attend the memorial service at Nyayo National Stadium tomorrow. So it'll leave Nyayo for Wilson Airport and then flown to Kabarak in Nakuru County at the end of tomorrow. So we're expecting 10 heads of state. They're expected to, be at the funeral service. And we also know that the Nairobi Eldoret Highway will be closed for only heavy commercial trucks and trailers to ease traffic for dignitaries traveling to Wednesday's burial. So there'll be quite a number of dignitaries who will be at the memorial service tomorrow, and will also then be at the funeral service in Kabarak on Wednesday.
Yeah, and speaking of dignitaries, we also have the former president, Mwai Kibaki, who did view the body. They accorded him some private time to do the viewing himself, and we're told that on the front page of the Daily Nation that singing stopped, cameras were switched off, and the public viewing was halted to give the former president privacy to mourn and the man he succeeded. And obviously with this, there has come a lot of attention to his health, a lot of concern, trying to figure out whether he's well. He's rarely in the public view like this. Yeah.
Actually, the former President Kibaki must have a very strong constitution because remember, even prior to his becoming president, he was involved in an accident. Then he was in and out of hospital for the longest time. Now, the one thing many people don't understand is that when you fall sick or whatever illness, every time you go into hospital, you don't emerge stronger.
No.
You're weaker. Yes, that's what illness does to you. And if chronology isn't on your side, as in meaning you're older, then you actually keep getting weaker. So and then if you consider that in the light or the background of the pressures that come with being president, if the man is still alive and well, he must have a very, very strong constitution.
Yeah, and with the pictures, all things considered, he looks pretty good, I think.
Yep. He's able to still walk, and do all those things. The Standard also has a story of the dream team that Moi created. You've talked about this dream team for quite a number of...
Yes, we've touched on it from time to time.
Yeah.
He even said at some point that President Uhuru Kenyatta should consider constituting a dream team of his own so that, just move the country from where it seems to be stagnating in terms of debt and management of public
Doesn't
finance.
he have one, though?
Who?
With Matiang'i and them, George Magoha, the performers.
Well,
those are performers.
Yeah.
A dream team now comes in at that point where they have a clear brief. It's reform.
It's official.
Yes,
this
it's reform.
Yeah.
Actually, they were at the level of permanent secretaries. And they were taken from the private sector, really.
Okay.
Yes, you had some bankers. Actually, there were many bankers, not just some. But what made it interesting was this was a response to complaints and criticism by international bodies that the people he had in government didn't seem to have the wherewithal to turn or to steer the country in the direction that was required economically. So he brought in people from the private sector. And then something even stranger, the head of the civil servant was Richard Leakey. Yes. Who I think prior to that had been head of Kenya Wildlife Services.
Right.
Yes. In fact, it is him who I think the name Kenya, he brought in this name Kenya Wildlife Services. And it was at a time when we were not getting foreign aid. In fact, we were not getting it.
Everything had dried up.
It had dried up. And what do they call them? Structural adjustment programs.
Yes.
And what have you. So he brought in Leakey. What made it interesting was here was an African government bringing a white man to head the civil service.
Yes.
Just for starters. And then handpicked individuals. I spoke to one of those individuals in the Dream Demand. I've said this before in the show. What he told me was their biggest hindrance were the people he found in the ministries. They were a constant bulwark.
Oh, yes.
You try to move forward, they check you at every move.
Right.
Yes.
One of those was Martin Odoro Otieno. Remember, he had come in from the banking sector and then he was taken into the treasury. And he's written a book and talked about his experience there. And he says, my goodness, yes. So we had all these, ideas and plans. Sometimes we'd have meetings outside of government offices just to sit down as a dream team and think, what is it that we need to bring? What kind of energy and effort do we need to inject into the public service? And everybody was just fighting them back. So the system would not work, would not move. People like Itili Mbathi, who was also there, he was in investment. So he would sit in certain boards of parastatals. You sit in certain boards and you realize, my goodness, the way these guys are thinking and the way they're doing things, completely different from where I've come from. And that's a frustration that they faced.
And I think it's probably something that people face to date.
The civil service has an ecosystem that is best understood if you've grown within that system. An outsider will have a hard time.
Might have the right ideas.
It doesn't matter how good those ideas are. You will. Because you have a permanent secretary. We call him the accounting officer. You have your minister. The people who actually make that ministry work are people immediately below that.
Right.
And without them, the civil service would not function.
Right.
Now, some of them will probably feel they could have been PS. They've been there 20 years. And then you come from nowhere and you're suddenly the boss. Aye.
And you're coming to tell us things.
And then you come and tell them things which, as far as they're concerned, you don't know.
You don't know.
One of them had come from the World Bank. It does not matter. You come from the banking sector. It does not matter. I mean, you've come umetupata hapa.
In fact, I think Kamau Thuge came in around that same time, didn't he?
I think he came in also, but
not as part of the dream team.
Yes, at junior levels.
Yes, but yes.
It's that tumeona wangapi mentality.
Oh yes, that was it.
Yes, and it's a company Nawewe ni nani.
Nawewe ni nani.
Yes.
Yeah, the guy who had actually come from those Bretton Woods institutions was Dr. Wilfred Mwangi. Right? And also Shemmi Gotatola as well had some stint in those institutions. Came and found it hard. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We are live streaming on Spice FM KE. Also, we are broadcasting on KTN News. Let's take a look at the weather, and the conversation continues.
The weather with Spice FM.
Currently 14 degrees in Nairobi, looking at partly cloudy conditions, but mostly a clear day with highs of 27 and lows of 14. Take a step over to Nakuru, where it's 12 degrees right now, and it's going to be clear through the day with highs of 29 and lows of 12. In Nyeri, currently at 13 degrees, it's going to be a sunshiny day there as well, with highs of 27 and lows of 13. 18 degrees in Kisumu with the sun shining as well, with highs of 32. In Mombasa at 25 degrees, clear with periodic clouds. It's going to be 32 degrees the high and the low of 26. In Malindi, partly cloudy conditions at 27 degrees with highs of 32 and lows of 27. Let's take a look over in East Africa at Dar es Salaam with 26 degrees currently, partly cloudy conditions through the day with highs of 33 and lows of 24. In Kampala at 18 degrees, you'll see a high of 30 and a low of 18. Further down south in Johannesburg, it's currently at 17 degrees, expecting rain later on in the day this Monday with highs of 24. Moving over west to Lagos, 27 degrees, a hot day today with Haze through the rest of the afternoon with highs of 35 and lows of 24. In Europe and London, it's at 8 degrees currently, mostly cloudy conditions. Expects sleet and rain later with lows of 4 and highs of 8. In Paris at 13 degrees, expect rain later on with snow as well with highs of 13 and lows of 6. And finally, rounding it out in New York with currently 5 degrees, partly cloudy conditions. Expect snow, slate and rain later with highs of 7 and lows of 4.
Chilled Spice. Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
You're catching us on KTN News Morning Express or Spice FM. You are in the right place for this conversation. This is a press review, and we're taking a look at what's making headlines as well as the biggest story of the day. And the death of the former president, Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, is still making headlines and will be doing so for the next few days. So he has been lying in state. Kenyans have been milling around parliament just to get a view of the former leader. And of course, there's a lot of color stories still accompanying that particular main story. And we have one here on the top page of the Standard that tells us former president's military attire on display at Parliament building, Nairobi yesterday. I would have thought they would have put him in it. Yeah, it would have looked really nice, I think.
Well, it's this uniform that when did he last wear it publicly?
I think I only saw it once.
Just
once.
Somewhere in the early 80s, right?
Yeah, just once.
Once.
I don't remember seeing him wearing it again.
Yeah.
Yes. He was perhaps best remembered in suits.
In suits, yeah.
And the tie.
He had some lovely ties.
And the lapel, the rose, I'm told, was real every
Right,
single
the
time.
boutonnieres were fresh
Yeah.
every day. Yes,
Cool.
yeah, that's interesting. Talking about colourful stories, and I think this is one that we'll talk about maybe later on in the show today, about then his influence on women and girls. Yeah. There was a day that he came face to face with the ugly side of FGM. He visited a small mission school and changed its face for good, apparently. It was in 1986, and he was touring the North Rift, as was his, normal, way of doing things, going around the country. And he encountered the sad reality that FGM, or female genital mutilation, and that survivors were living in obscurity at a center that he really couldn't understand. The girls, of course, would flee their homes because they were trying to escape the cut and were being accommodated at this mission facility. So there were many numbers. There were a huge number of girls now in this facility, and it was dilapidated. And he was like, what is this? And who are these girls that live here? Basically. And so when it was explained to him, first of all, he didn't understand or couldn't comprehend that there were so many girls who were running away from this, number one. Number two, there was this vice that was still existent, of course, quite hinged on tradition, that were, making these young girls live in fear. And then to top it off, that they were living in conditions that were quite pitiful as far as he was concerned. So he basically said, we will deal with the FGM as an issue later. But for now, these girls need to live in a place that is at the very least honorable. So basically asked them to pull down the entire building and rebuild it so that they had an honorable place to live. Of course, the interesting thing was that he sat down and listened to the stories of all of these young girls. Not all of them, because there were quite a number, but a significant number. And then he ordered that the district commissioner immediately start the construction of new buildings for the Kapsowar girls.
And it's thanks to that they got 6 dormitories,
Exactly.
classrooms, and a bus was donated to the school. And they even changed the uniform color to his favorite color, just to show their appreciation.
What was his
for it.
favorite color?
Who knows?
Oh, there you go, maroon. It was maroon. It was maroon.
So they changed to maroon.
Yeah.
All right. And the name of the school was renamed? Was it or was it not? I mean, it must have been
Yes,
called Moi
it was
something.
it was renamed. It was Kapsawar Girls, and then it became Moi Kapsawar
yeah.
Girls,
course.
of course, in memory of the revolution of the once rescue center. So it was a rescue center, and then it became a school, and then later it got elevated to a national school. In 2013, it was elevated to a national school, and its principal, Helen Mabese, said the school has lost an iconic founder and mentor.
Now, when you talk about these stories of the former president, of course, there are those that are accusing the media of going all out to try and sanitize
And change history.
and change history. Is that a fair assessment? Though?
What aspect of the information that has been in the media constitutes or could justify that accusation? What is it that the media has done which
Which is
points-
sanitizing.
Yes,
Yeah.
what is it?
Because are we talking about stuff that he didn't do?
These are
or
not
that
lies,
he did,
yeah.
or are they lies? You know, like a story like this.
Are we reconstructing
For example,
something? It didn't happen.
There's
and
there's too much focus on only this kind of stories, and not
Right.
much focus on, for example, telling the stories of those who were sent to exile, telling the stories of those who were tortured, telling the stories of the voices that were completely suppressed.
But then, these are not stories that were never told. They've been told. I think it's the timing that comes into play right now. To what end would that be for? To dig that up, I think.
It's balancing the story.
True.
In fact, the conversation that's going out is, we as Africans have this thing of when somebody is dead, you don't even talk. Even if somebody was killed,
You don't talk
ill
of the dead.
You don't talk ill of the
basically,
dead.
right?
At this point, you're basically saying, "No, he was a good man, despite all his challenges. He loved his family. He was a young boy. You always like to talk about the positive side.
Right.
So is it just is it an unfair accusation of not just the media but just all of us as Kenyans that we're trying to suppress everything else, put it in the back burner?
I don't
There are
know
those
to
that
what
want
end
want
it
us to
would
say
be.
that this man ran a
Did this
repressive
and that.
regime.
To what end?
If you're talking about oppressive regime, since we're talking about we've used the term, why don't we quantify it and qualify it, okay? Around the time when Moi was president, you had people in Latin America who, in my estimate, are gold standard dictators, okay? People who went about killing their citizenry willy-nilly without even a second thought. The ramifications of it are being felt even now. You're talking about Chile, you're talking about Argentina, you're talking about people who worked, you're talking 30 years, many years ago. They're now being brought to book for the things they did. You know why? There isn't much memory of good. The evil or the harm is what is preeminent. We have a case here where a lot went wrong. People were tortured. Families were dismantled. Families were dislocated. Yet, there are also many stories of good people who benefited. Now, what you're talking about is how do you balance this? On a weighing scale, people tend to want to forget the harm. Anything that was harmful to you. We had a gentleman who was in the torture chambers here. He didn't want to recount those days. He did not want to talk about them. It's the way we are. It's something you don't want to talk about. You'd rather think and look positively on the things that have happened. It doesn't mean that you're sanitized.
There are those that
Yeah.
want to talk about it. For example, people like Professor Makao Mutua, he's even posted it on social media and saying, look, I'm looking back at the
He's
years
gone
of
ahead and
Moi.
written an article. I mean,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
I'm looking back at the years of Moi and I'm thinking, this is what happened. I lost a huge chunk of my youth
He did.
spending it outside the country.
He did.
And this is,
And the thing is, he isn't the only one.
there are many.
Remember-
Wanyeri Kihoro was telling us the same thing.
Yes.
When he visited Wanyeri Kihoro, the former Nyeri town MP.
Yes.
He was tortured. He
was.
But he came here and he was, also looking beyond that.
Yeah.
You see, if we want to give this thing a fair assessment, we actually need to ask how many people were actually detained, how many people were jailed during that period, and how many of them have told their stories. Many people tell the stories of their torture, but they balance it out and tell you, something. Since then, and then they go on.
This has happened, right?
This has happened. One of the things that Moi did when he first came into power, remember he released something like 26 detainees. He didn't invent detention. It was a legal process that the country had. You could be detained. You could actually be held. You could be arrested, held. Put it this way, you could go to jail directly.
Yeah.
You're arrested, you go to jail, and you sit there.
Yeah.
These laws have since been changed. In any system of government, even when you have a situation where you could argue the government isn't repressive, there are always people in that system who will feel left out, targeted. Now, so at what point is our history or the history telling an accurate form of it? How many people suffered under Mau Mau? And how many people to date still suffer the ramifications of Mau Mau? I've mentioned in this same studio the issue of something called the Swinnerton Plan. Most people haven't heard of it and don't even bother with it. It was an ingenious plan to dislocate culturally and socially an entire community, the Kikuyu, entire. Now, you cannot dislocate a community and think that the effect will be felt immediately. No. It's a generation later that you feel the impact. Now, that story isn't told. It hasn't been hidden, but people don't tell the story.
People don't talk about it.
It's unfortunate, but this is how many human beings are. They actually do not like to be reminded of the terrible things that have happened in their lives.
Well, I think it's a kind of repressive reality in the sense that, remembering it or rather speaking about it is going to make you remember it. And then, of course, it's going to conjure all kinds of negative feelings that you don't want to live in that reality anymore, to live through it anymore.
But that
and I think
history
that's the
teaches
reason
you
why,
as well.
Sure, but
if you try to balance it out, you need to talk about it so that history teaches you.
Of course.
And tells you this is why we don't want to go back to this point.
You'll find that there's some people who will never speak about it in their lifetime, and because of the fact that it was so painful for them. Again, I think that is one of the reasons why we don't speak ill of the dead, because it now brings up a lot of memories that people don't want to have to deal with.
Actually, Eric has an extremely valid point. If you really want to overcome these things, it's something you must talk about.
Of course, absolutely.
In detail.
Yeah, you have to go through the
No
detail.
whitewashing, no mamby-pambing it. Just say, this is what happened.
Yeah.
In Rwanda, they have a museum.
Oh, yeah.
If you visit that museum, it'll traumatize you. It is good that it should, because it reminds you of what happened.
It's a constant
The
reminder.
skulls that you see in that museum
Yeah.
are not wax skulls. They're
They're
skulls
real.
of real people who
kids
actually
and-
died.
Yeah.
In Germany, the issues surrounding World War II are taught in detail. Again, lest people
Lest
forget.
people forget.
And with that in mind, it is actually correct that the things that happen in this country, from independence and prior to independence, they must be taught as they were.
Then this is
so
the
that
thing.
we know.
Then this is the thing, because if we look at it now, if you want to look at it critically, right, Eric, just like you're saying, if we talk about healing and cohesion and things like this, there really then cannot be any kind of real unity, real healing, if those issues then are not visited in detail. If that's what we're looking at, if we want to be serious about some of the things that we see then in modern, in current situations, in current politics in this country, any country for that matter, if you don't go through if you don't go through the details and find out, the question you often ask, where did the rain start beating us? Then at that point, if we're not able to then heal through that,
we don't go back
then what we are
in
doing
time.
now is almost futile.
We've attempted that with the
Right.
Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission. It wasn't, as well done as it should have been, right?
far-reaching,
Because, well, in fact, already the TJRC itself had issues, the composition of the TJRC and all.
The chair.
But from the chair to the other members. But also, that's the point. You come, you speak the truth, you seek justice, you reconcile. And that has to happen.
Absolutely.
So it's the same thing. Those who are feeling that, a lot of the Moi stories are not being told, it's important. You tell your story.
I think so.
From wherever angle.
And I think they need to be given a
From
platform.
Professor
to do that.
Makao Mutua, you want to speak about it, talk about it. And then also you've got to balance it out with people who are telling the story from the other side.
Absolutely.
And those who see a different perspective of, yes, I know what happened, but looking back, I can see this is where the president was coming from.
And they're not, it's good that it's not lies. Those people who are saying good things, these are things that the president actually did for them. The guy who got to ride in a chopper, small things, and then the big things, such as he intervened when they didn't want to appoint me to a board, and then without knowing what happened, suddenly things were streamlined for me. And on The Nation, on page 10, we have a story that actually tries to capture some of those things. We're told the loyalists to rebels, the men and women who served in Moi's cabinets. There's a part of it that says, well, Moi's cabinet was made up of volatile, arrogant, and uncooperative ministers like Paul Ngei. Others were neither tough nor forceful. So I think it goes
There were
in
some guys
on
there who
some
were
of
just
them.
filling the seats.
Yeah.
Neither tough nor forceful. Okay. Were they effective, though? That's the other question. That's what we should ask. Maybe they were not tough or forceful, but they were effective. This is a Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM 94.4 in Nairobi. We are in Mombasa on 87.9, Kisumu 102.5, Nakuru 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, 90.9 in Nyeri, And of course, we're in Malindi on 97.7. We live stream the show as well on www.spicefm.co.ke. We also live stream on our social media platforms. Spice FM KE, we are live streaming on Facebook at Spice FM KE, on Twitter and YouTube, Spice FM KE. The show, of course, is a joint broadcast with KTN News. So this is also the Morning Express newspaper review. That's a top story review. It's 28 minutes to 7 o'clock. Good morning. Let's take a look at traffic and then the conversation continues.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Traffic.
All right, let's take a look at the roads on what is going to be an extremely busy day. From 6 o'clock, we already had traffic on Mombasa Road, and this was far back as far back as the Way Bridge this morning, and it's snaking along bumper to bumper, moving very, very slowly. Of course, we know that there are a number of roads that are going to be closed today. I'll get to that in just a moment. Getting towards the Pangani Tunnel to Ngara is all right, moving very well today. Coming then from Muthaiga, it's moving a little bit slower. Thika Road from Garden City is better today than it was a couple of days ago, but this is for now. Very important information for you to have today. Aerodrome Road will be closed tomorrow. Of course, tomorrow being a public holiday. But today, we already know that Likoni Road, Bunyala Road, Valley Road and University Way will be closed. It's going to be very difficult to access the city centre today, and that will see a lot of traffic from all of the feeder roads into town. From Langata Road to Ngong Road, Mombasa Road, as well as Thika Road and Wayaki Way. Getting into the city centre will be a slow affair today. So plan your time, or rather plan your journey ahead of time. So if you've not left now, you might want to wait until later. And of course, this is because of the viewing that continues at Parliament buildings. If you do find an alternative, let us know. Spice FM KE.
This is Trix Ingado from KTN News' Morning Express. We are here with Siti Muga, Eric Latif and Ndu Oko, and this is the Situation Room. Today we're looking at the major stories of the day. We talked about the ongoing story, that is the viewing of the body and the funeral arrangements of the former President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, but there are other stories that are making headlines, and we're going to dig deeper into those. And the locusts still making headlines.
Imagine.
Yeah. The Daily Nation has a whole spread on them, how a single locust becomes a plague, and they're drawing us a worldwide map all the way from Pakistan down to Kenya and trying to predict where they're going and of course the devastation they will leave in their wake. We have Ali Bila Wako, a farmer in northeastern Kenya, who has said they ate most of the grain and what they didn't eat dried up. That was hurt. That has hurt us a lot. We saw the food with our eyes, but we never even got to enjoy it, which is a reality for many farmers.
My goodness. So of course we know. So the journey starts in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And what's the prediction? Where is it going to end?
So it started off in Pakistan, came down to Oman with pockets surrounding that area, then Yemen, down to Somalia, into Ethiopia, and most of it actually has come down to Kenya, and some of it is going back to Ethiopia, while the rest is predicted that will head to Uganda and obviously to the rest of the region. So, and also we're being given a breakdown of some of the worst swamp deserts in decades are now decimating crops and pasture across the Horn of Africa, and area covering Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia and Somalia and beyond. So, but when you look at this map, it's very concentrated in Pakistan, Yemen and Kenya.
Right. Of course, what we've seen is that there's been a lot of dumping in this sense of water coming from the rains. And this is what we see, a lot of flooding happening in those upper areas, or rather in those eastern areas. And then that comes down towards East Africa. And because now of the ocean changes and the flooding that we see in those areas, this is what is going to be experienced, because we're in the same, what it was called, wind-water pattern as those countries. And we're going to see a lot more of this just because of that now. We also, I think we had this discussion at some point yesterday, we also will see that yes, I think at some point C.S. Munya had said that, look, at this point, there's really nothing we could have done as Kenya in terms of the influx into the country, because this is a pattern that they're following. They're going to come this way. And because of the increased rain that we're seeing in those other countries, Pakistan, Oman, Yemen, they come down into Kenya. We can't do anything about that. They would come this way anyway. What can be done is about their presence here.
Yeah.
However, that is something that we can't control in terms of how they will come into the country or how they will continue coming.
Yeah,
how they come in, we can't control. We can control their breeding.
Absolutely.
For example, we can disrupt that.
Make
Absolutely,
the environment not
that's the
conducive.
point. Exactly, make the environment not conducive for them to continue.
Because they started off in Pakistan in early 2019,
Yes,
so we had plenty of time to figure this out, I think.
What is of interest is that they are known to consume up to 200 tons of food per day.
This is interesting, CT, that you say that, because you know what? A locust itself, on its own, will only consume 2 grams, its body weight, right? The thing is, though, that in a swarm, you've got 70 million.
Ravenous
So
millions,
all of them are consuming what would be 1.8 million tons of forage in a day. So this is the one thing of, you work, you go further together in this case.
Yes, this is it.
Yeah.
This is it.
But
Together we can.
One of the things that we also not told is that, or rather isn't in the public domain, is that they also morph.
Oh,
Yes, they do. Given, if they come across the sort of vegetation that they have in Kenya where it's constantly raining, so they eat this foliage and move on. Usually, when they've decimated it, there's nothing much, so they keep moving. In our case, the foliage grows again.
It gets because of the rain, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there really is no need for them to move.
So the new names are
They just
just,
keep-
Yes, yes.
Found something to
yes,
eat, yes.
And instead of being this more or less docile creature that they are, they now acquire a certain aggressiveness that they previously didn't have. And then also, because they're in one place, the numbers multiply at a much higher rate.
Yeah.
Right.
They're all in one place. So you're talking of Al-Shabaab. This
things
is
are bad.
worse
Yeah.
than Al-Shabaab.
These things are bad. And the unstable situation, of course, in Yemen and Somalia also.
and these are
is
very dry
not making it
places, so
less,
yeah.
Yes.
Really-
And they're not going to go back there.
And you talk about the unstable situation, I think, Eric. I think that's important because we're not talking about instability in the sense of the earth. We're talking about instability in the sense of government.
Yeah.
So
And
government
what
is
they're
not doing
able
much.
to do in policy, undertaking to have something done about this, they're likely not to do anything real quick.
170,000 acres of vegetation was wiped out in Somalia and Ethiopia last year. And they want the numbers we have now in Kenya.
Right.
And these things are coming.
Oh, I get the impression they even call relatives. They sort of like...
And there's food
say,
here, folks.
Guys,
Come where you...
So
yeah.
This is
the
why
ones that
it's
were
hard.
born in Somalia and Yemen, they're told, okay, follow your elders.
Yes,
right?
and
then of
they
course here in
breed.
Kenya, they're still also.
yes,
hatching
precisely.
they're
And you
reproducing.
give it a 3-month period. The people who... The first invading forces have since died. So,
Yeah, true.
They're
Yes.
dead.
These are
Yeah.
generations.
so this is a new generation.
Yeah, and I find it quite curious that even with the science and the predictions nowadays, there's some ways that we think about these things because people are now calling them plagues. There are people who are saying this is God's punishment for corruption. I know. I've seen a quote right here that one person said, they're calling it philosophical. I think it's a little ignorant. He says it is God's will. This is His army. There were locusts. I mean, if we're still thinking of these problems in that type of whimsical way, then how can we even at the grassroots level think of ways of
It may not
ourselves
be
helping
whimsical.
ourselves?
Trix, if
Do you
you've read the
believe
Bible,
it's God's
if
army?
you've read the Bible and you look at those plagues,
But then that brings the idea that we are helpless.
All right, so
You know?
if we
Now,
were to...
God,
If
Moses
we
told them,
No,
let my
yeah.
people
If
go.
we were
In
to
this
go-
way.
Who should we let go now?
if we are to go with the plague narrative of Egypt, so what should we expect next? Frogs.
Frogs, boils.
The
Maybe not.
River
Maybe this
Nzoia will
is-
turn
please,
red.
maybe we are not reliving the Egypt plagues. We're just looking at, this is something that has happened. If things happened and people said, this thing now, let's just pray. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with
There's
people
nothing
viewing
wrong
it as
with
saying
it,
this
but
is
then-
God's will, but no, so let's pray. and
Nothing
tell
wrong
him.
with praying. Remember, they formed
let's
choirs
ask
when
God.
they first came.
Let's ask
How
God
did that
to
help?
intervene.
With
Let's ask
beating
God to
drums
help
in
us.
tow, no less.
Yeah, the thing was that back
We
in the
pray
day,
for rain,
Yeah.
right? And when we're praying for rain, we're okay with praying for rain.
So now in this case, we need to pray for the locusts
We
to go
pray,
away.
yes.
Okay.
Actually,
And or change.
Eric,
All effort must be put into this.
this isn't the
and those
first
that
time.
believe in
This-
that believe in it, I think let's not dismiss them and say, you know what, you guys are come on,
Actually,
why
they
you
have to be
thinking this way?
dismissed.
Yeah, I think so.
When there's some wild conjecture and there's a rational, clear, logical explanation, this one is not. It's not really complicated. It isn't the first time we've had locusts here. These numbers are great, and it's easy to explain. It's easy to understand why they're even resident here and why they're not moving away. And it's even clear why they're likely to move to Uganda, and they're likely to move to Tanzania. All right? There's a story right now. Remember, last year and the year before, the Serengeti was drying up and it was bringing into conflict animals and humans. Now with the rains, man, the Serengeti is alive.
It's lush.
Vegetation is alive. It's lush. East Africa, because of this rain, is lush. These insects aren't going anywhere.
And notice,
And there's nothing we can do.
It's
In
Oh,
interesting
no, there's a
because-
lot we can do.
In
No, I
science,
mean,
in science, you
if-
can
if-
explain all these things,
Yeah.
all right? But also when it comes to faith, you also cannot dismiss that.
No, I mean, there's
Everything
not,
that happened, even Noah's Ark, there was a huge deluge. It rained for so long. You can explain it. You know, science can sit down and say, this is what
Let's
happened.
wait for Eric's explanation
Oh,
of Noah's Ark.
I don't know. the
and
explanation.
tie it into the
So we can
locusts.
say-
Because when I'm
Not
saying
locusts.
there's nothing we can do, I mean in the Egyptian plagues, they said you let my people go, and then the plagues will disappear. So in this instance, should we start doing things hoping if we do this, then the locusts will disappear?
ask for a sign.
Science.
We should
Science
ask for a
is the
sign.
answer.
Are you saying that there was no
Just-
scientific
just-
explanation
just-
to the
just hold on
Egyptian
1
plagues?
minute. I just want to get some clarity here, Eric. You actually, in this case, you believe that maybe some prayers need to be said. So
No,
that
what I'm saying is those that believe, I am not going to dismiss them.
I got it. Okay.
Those that believe, I'm not going to dismiss them. You want to pray, go ahead, pray. Explain it in your own faith, it's okay. But I cannot sit back and say, yeah, come on. I read the Bible. I believe whatever has been written in the Bible. I look at it
Eric,
and I
I'm
see
not dismissing the
that time
prayers.
because there
Yeah.
were locusts in Egypt. You can't just say, oh,
No,
God brought
no,
locusts
no,
there.
I'm not dismissing.
Scientifically, you could explain
Even if
it.
you're going to pray, your prayers need to be focused and accurate. What exactly are we praying for?
For.
Understanding makes prayer more meaningful. Now, the scientific explanation simply gives you clarity as to what we have. So if you're going to pray, you then know what to pray for and what to expect in response to your prayer.
When Job was facing all those things that he was facing, he had no explanation.
And the locusts,
His prayer was, God, whatever it is that's happening, I still cling to you. His children were killed, his livestock, all those things the devil was trying to bring to him. His prayer was, I believe, I cling to you.
You see, if
Trying to explain and saying, I have a rational decision, explanation, this is what I'm going to pray for. I'm going to ask God, please bring back my children. That's not it, just pray. Whatever you're going to pray for, pray.
If we keep thinking like that, then when they predict that the locusts are coming, we'll just say, okay, God, here's another plague that's coming our way. So show us the way. I mean, we need to be very proactive
this
about
particular
these
case
problems.
that we speak of, not only was it known, what needs to be done was also known.
No.
And our government forces that are responsible for these things bungled it.
True.
It's not even complicated. They
Yes.
bungled it.
Yes.
They were told by FAO and people who understand something called ground spraying so that they don't breed.
Yes.
Did we ground spray? No.
No.
We sprayed the air.
In fact, we took the pesticides for ground spraying and put them in the aerial spraying
Yes, lovely
compartment at
stuff.
some point.
Lovely
It was
stuff.
great.
Lovely stuff. Lovely stuff. So the spray greeted the locusts in
I
there.
tell
Said,
you.
hi.
Hi.
Then they landed down and proceeded to breed. The whole idea behind ground spraying is so that when they start eating the vegetation, they eat whatever organic material there is in the insecticide or pesticide so that they don't breed. But in the air, useful stuff.
Nice.
Yes, useful stuff. Good aerosol, good for smelling. Lovely.
Yeah.
Yes, the government bungled it. The ordinary farmer did not know. The ordinary farmer had no
idea.
knowledge of all these things. So no.
I wouldn't be
The ordinary
surprised.
farmer is basically looking at his crop,
Yes.
his hard work.
Yes. Being eaten before his very eyes.
Yes.
Yes.
So if that ordinary farmer chooses to pray, chooses to go back to his faith, I let him. And I say,
I am in full agreement with
Yes.
ministers and officials in government, you should do what you're supposed to do. and let these people...
Eric, no, please.
Stop,
They should not do what they do normally, yeah? No.
Supposed to
No. No, Eric, they should do things differently
Yeah.
and actually do what they know ought to be done.
Yes.
No.
Do
Doing
the
what they
needful.
do is what they've been doing, and that's why we're where we are. Yes, bungling. I wouldn't be
So
surprised.
you chose to ignore the word supposed, eh?
No.
Do what you're supposed to do.
No. Not supposed to do. Let them do what is known is required to be done, not what they're supposed to do. You don't give public servants that leeway, Chief. The next thing you're going to hear is that the reason why the plane didn't go is because somebody put whatever insecticide into the tank
fuel
of the tank, yes, so the plane couldn't move. No, don't go there. And if you're talking about prayer, the prayer should focus on the government officials. Pray that God would give them wisdom. Pray that they would have the wherewithal to do what is right. That's where I'd focus my prayers.
All right.
Yes.
13 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is A Situation, also broadcasting on KTN News as The Morning Express on KTN News. CT Muga, Eric Latif, Nduoko, and Trixingado from KTN News. Let's take a short break and then the conversation continues.
Spice FM. Nyeri.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Of course, we also saw some news breaking over the weekend. This was on social media. Video clip going round. There's this man, he's a Chinese national who is seen caning a Kenyan who is a worker at a restaurant in Nairobi. Goes viral.
Which part of the body was he caning?
He's behind.
You're a mwalimu. Those things that you guys used to do. Right?
Your students.
Right? That's what was being done.
You've said right
To an
3
adult.
times.
Yes. So that you get it.
Those were
Those were children.
No. You want me to be specific? Bamboo.
Bamboo stick.
It worked wonders.
Wouldn't break.
I actually came to understand that there was a direct correlation to a certain transmission of pain through the backside. It somehow opened certain facilities in the brain, and then people became compliant. Their understanding in class increased. Or even the threat of it.
People got it.
Yes.
Yeah.
The thing was, in a girls' school, you didn't cane girls. You probably just hit their hands. The threat of punishment for girls was usually sufficient. They would cry and they'd be remorseful that they'd change. And they would change. It's the boys who tended to be the headache. They would defy you. Yes.
The more you beat
Test
them,
the
the worse it
boundaries.
gets.
No, you didn't even need to beat them. With time, you realized the people you just need to talk to and understand what it is. That was the problem.
Yeah.
The cane usually would be the last alternative.
So this particular clip going around over the weekend was showing a senior Chinese hotel officer whipping a Kenyan waiter over allegations of reporting late to work. This was the Shez Wu restaurant in Kileleshwa last week.
Yeah, not to victim blame, but is this what your forefathers died for you to be asked to lay down and be whipped, and you just you do it, and then your colleagues are over there giggling their hearts out as they video? I mean, at some point you need to say no. This is not going to happen.
Are you
to
having
me.
a problem because this is a non-Kenyan whipping a Kenyan, or are you having a problem because this is an adult whipping another adult?
I'm having a problem because this is a Kenyan in their motherland laying down without their brains telling them, wait, this is not right. So before his cane even lands on you, I mean, you should have pause and ask yourself, why am I allowing this to happen in my own country? I mean, before us, we are outraged. Yourself, you should be outraged by the mere thought of someone, a foreigner, whipping you as an adult.
Ask yourself this question.
Yeah.
Would an ordinary Kenyan find it unusual for someone to mete out a punishment through a cane or a beating? Would they find it unusual?
Yes. If an African asked you to lay, your bosses here, if they asked you to lay on the floor and whip you, you would be irate.
No, I wasn't talking about whipping.
Yeah.
I'm starting with the basic punishment. Do we consider it? Okay. You're talking about a misogynistic community, society, where there's male dominance, all right? The idea of solving a problem, usually, if you listen to people talking, the one thing they'll tell you, beat that person. Meaning, it's a solution.
Yeah.
Has that person been slapped sufficiently? Normal conversation.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's normalized.
Yes. Even when people have a discussion and they disagree, what often comes out when there doesn't seem to be a way out is, I will beat you.
Yes.
But do they do it though?
Given, if for someone to say that often, it means it's an acceptable way of conflict resolution. Now, that's the mindset. So now, here's your boss, okay, punishing you. What is terrible? The optics that a Chinese person is beating an African.
Yes.
What, or is it that the
When I
form of
listen to
punish-
tricks,
Yes.
that's it.
That's it. And
A
I think that's where
non-Kenyan.
that's where the outrage has come from. A lot
Somebody
of people.
who is not a Kenyan is punishing a Kenyan
No,
in
beating.
Kenya.
Beating. I mean,
Beating.
No, I think
In
that's
Kenya.
the problem. I don't, because I do agree with you. I think a lot of cases, even when you're having a conversation, we're in Takugonga, the
Yes.
kind of thing that you say
Yes,
to one
yes,
another, right?
yes,
It's
yes.
normal.
Kunyorosha.
Yes.
Takushughulikia. It's normal. However, this is somebody who is, number one, not Kenyan.
Yes.
And then we come to find out later that they don't even have their documents in order.
In order.
And then you're beating me. Let me tell you, in Nigeria,
Yeah.
they'll collect you. What? First of all, the people who are watching will not even agree. First of
Yeah.
all, before we even call any police, we'll beat you, deal with you properly. Then we'll call the
See?
police to come and
Yeah.
sort you
Deal
out.
with you. It's normalized.
Yes.
I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah.
Punishment, beating, a slap, the odd choice kick here and there.
No, I'm saying in
Okay?
this case now, the foreigner,
thing
Yes.
the
Would be
foreigner would be sorted
be
out.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
And that's what I would have
How,
loved.
how
yeah.
can you?
This
What are you doing?
But then in this
guys,
scenario,
reality, these
I beg.
things happen. This is not the only
Really?
And we're
instance.
saying it is not supposed to be like
Not
that.
Yeah.
just with foreigners. This happens a lot. You'll talk to people and they'll tell you in the industrial area. This works.
Wanachapwa.
Yes.
For Christ's sake. I mean,
Ask people how whether they've ever heard of somebody who has mistreated their domestic workers.
Okay, that one is bad as it is. Now imagine on top of that, somebody who is not
There
even
you
a
go.
Kenyan
yeah.
coming out
and
to
your
do
fellow
that. And
Kenyans
your
who are
fellow
taking
Kenyans are
footage
taking-
and
they're laughing.
giggling.
So your
I
fellow
mean,
Kenyans, they're looking at it from a point. Well, so first of all, I'm desperate. I need this job.
Uncle Philosopher has come this Monday morning.
No,
He's
I need this
interpreting
job.
to us what these
No.
Kenyans were thinking.
were
I'm
explaining.
actually in agreement with Eric.
They're
here.
explaining themselves.
because
Yes.
to me,
I need a job, and this
So
is
let me-
happening.
let me lay down and take it.
It's just what is most important to
People
me.
grow up being caned and beaten as children. This is not something they consider. It's not as though you're traumatizing them. You're not.
he's fine.
The guy himself
No,
was laughing.
they're not being traumatized.
The uproar was
At
founded.
Yakeni.
Yeah.
The uproar and the outrage was founded because
It is.
that
Of
is
course
the
it
reason.
is.
Of course, that's where the reason that's what came out. Are you kidding? For crying
And
out
if
loud!
they had reacted,
You are in our country.
You're in our country
as a visitor,
surely,
and then
now
you're caning a full-grown man.
And this is where now I draw the line, all right? So people are outraged because a foreigner is doing this.
Yes.
Remember when you were talking about nationalization and nationalism the other day, and people looking at because we are and therefore you are a visitor and there's a way you should behave. This is our kind of mentality.
Yeah,
These people are coming to beat us. These people are coming, they have taken over our businesses. These people are now roasting maize on the roadside. These people are doing this kind of business. This is how we are viewing them.
Yes.
It's a human being beating up a human being. That's it.
That's
Whether
how you
this
see
person
it.
is a foreigner.
No, but that's
It's a,
how
it's
No.
a Chinese,
It's a Chinese
human
human
being
beating a Kenyan
human
human.
being.
Yeah.
Now, when you start looking at it like a Chinese human being
But
beating up a
it is
Kenyan
a
human
Chinese-
But that's
being.
what it is.
Honestly, I'm outraged at everyone in that area.
Why don't we
because
talk about the Asians beating Kenyans in industrial area? and
it's
all
We
just
that?
should
as
be
bad.
talking about it.
Yeah.
Kenyans,
It's just as bad.
They're Kenyans.
It's okay.
They're Kenyans.
It's just as bad.
But we don't.
Because
we don't,
at the end of the
we
day,
don't
it's-
raise it.
Yeah, I'm saying it should be raised. That's what I'm saying. We should be talking about it.
Why didn't
It
he?
should
Eric, it is wrong either way.
It's wrong.
Of course,
man.
it's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just saying the approach here is more focused towards this is a foreigner doing this in our country.
Actually,
Remember what Trick started with?
Yeah.
what is even
Is this what your forefathers died for?
For in the forest. So you need
to come and lie down
Yeah.
and
be
present your
beaten.
behind to be beaten.
And you're smiling.
Oh, more. No.
Should be liberated.
You know, please remember that what it points to is actually even more interesting. It is not just the subservient, but the beaten down mindset of the ordinary Kenyan.
I
Meaning,
need, yes, I need this
because
thing
I
more
need
than
this job, I will put up with any amount
anything
of
that comes
indignity
my
that
way.
comes my
Absolutely.
way, so long as I maintain my job. One. At the second level, there is these fellows have already come in and they're messing us up. We hear stories of SGR and what have you.
Then on top of it-
yes. Then on top of it, this guy is coming. What?
no.
And the kenning also came up.
They've been eating our dogs. I don't know if we've accepted it. It's okay. We're not kicking our fuss
We
too
don't
much.
care
All right?
about our dogs
But
like that.
they're actually caning a full-grown
Our
man.
men.
Yeah.
I mean,
That one, no.
It's inappropriate.
Something's wrong.
it's inappropriate.
Yes.
So police have gone in and arrested many of those individuals. They were found. Some didn't have work permits. Others had, of course, all of them have tourist visas. Some of them have tourist visas that have expired. The question, though, is where were the police? You know all this? When
During-
somebody is going and opening a business and recruiting foreign nationals, isn't it a basic thing that you'll have people who are going inspecting and seeing
You
who
do.
works here?
You do.
When you are working here, do you have your papers in order? Do you have a
do.
work permit? Do you have your work permit in order? So this is where Matiang's immigration ministry
What is
comes in.
difficult with having all those when you open for the first month and they come for inspection, everything is as you say.
Yes.
And
Then
then
after
the people
that,
move
they don't
out
come back.
and they bring. And as far as we're concerned, all these Chinese look alike.
So one guy
That's a
is,
little racist.
Well, they think we all look alike.
they actually do.
They do?
Oh, yes, they do. They
Yes.
think we look alike. Yes.
Look, all communities, I'm saying this deliberately.
Yeah.
If you ask any Kenyan, they'll tell you, these white people look the same. I'm sure they'll tell you, we look the same. So it's something we share universally. And it isn't even racist. The truth of the matter is, it's the lack of familiarity.
Exposure.
Yes. If, for instance, you believe that people who come from Western Kenya are all dark,
Or love chicken.
verging on blue or on purple blue. And then you find someone from of central Kenya with such a hue in his color.
Yeah.
So you ask him, so which part of Western do you come from? That's what on earth are you talking
mean?
about?
Trix, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah,
we hope
thank
to
you
see
for having
you. Shall we be with you here tomorrow or Wednesday?
Wednesday, probably.
So Michael Getonga from KTN News will be with us tomorrow. Trix Engado from KTN News is going back into KTN News. The show continues, of course, here on Spice FM. The Situation Room, it's Kenya's biggest conversation. In the next hour, we'll be talking about the PSV and the unruly PSV sector in the country. At 8 to 9 o'clock, we'll be joined by NARC Kenya Party leader Martha Karua. She'll be talking to us, of course, about the more years and also NARC Kenya's strategy for 2022. And then we'll go into, lest we forget, we have children who died in Kakamega. We have locusts in the country. We've got floods ravaging the country. We need, and the coronavirus and the preparedness of the country on that. Of course, we'll be discussing all that. Keep it right here. Thank you very much, Trix. See you tomorrow.
See you.
Stay with us. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Coming up to 7 o'clock, take a look at the traffic, and then the conversation continues.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Spice FM. Nakuru. Traffic.
Right, everybody's going to need a woosah moment today in traffic. Mombasa Road is quite the mess trying to get into the city centre. Right now, it looks like what you will be able to use is the turn off at the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, taking you then towards Bagathi Way. That's an option for now because it's moving quite smoothly. Waiyaki Way to Nairobi is very smooth. Slow movement from Survey to town. And that's, of course, on Thika Road. It's very, very slow. Langata Road right now is not so bad, but we know that Thika Road inbound is a parking lot right far back as Safari Park Hotel. It's a Monday morning, of course, compounded by the fact that quite a number of roads are closed this morning due to the viewing of the body of the late President Daniel Arap Moi at Parliament buildings. So that affects quite a lot that we see on the roads today. If you're going to use Bagathi Way, you should have left a while ago because that's not happening, unfortunately. Milimani Road, as you approach Valley Road, also is closed. So that means right around Silver Springs is also closed as well. Folks, you're going to have to exercise patience. If you find an alternate route that we don't know about right now, do let us know. Spice FM KE on Twitter, 0719 012 600.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Well, a very good morning to you. 2.5 minutes past 7 o'clock. Of course, we know the traffic situation, as Ndu has just told us. The body of the former president is about to be brought back into Parliament. So, of course, the entire Valley Road is currently closed to traffic all the way to Ralph Bunch, right?
Yes.
And so, brave yourselves. This is going to happen today, and then, of course, tomorrow is a public holiday, so not so bad. Now, at there's 3 minutes past 7 o'clock. Remember, this is a situation. We are live streaming the show on Spice FM KE, Facebook, www.spicefmke, that's spicefm.co.ke, that's our website. And of course, also we are also live streaming on Twitter at spicefmke. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads. And this is going back to the days of the former Minister for Transport, and this was Mr. Michuki. So when Michuki decided, look, we need to bring some sanity and some order into the public service vehicle sector, there are those that looked back and thought, this is impossible. It's impossible for you to do anything to regulate and to bring sanity into this sector. Matatus were, operating as they wished. Matatu crew were completely, they didn't have...
They're a law unto themselves.
Yes, they didn't even have good manners, just so to speak, right? But then we've seen some sort of return into these old days of lack of law and order into the matatu sector. We have seen a lot of, matatus coming up. Yes, they are well done. They are pimped, as so to speak. And then they have these loud music systems. They have got all these big giant screens, actually. Nowadays, you come up with a matatu, you've got to put a giant screen in the matatu, which plays all sorts of video, especially music videos. At some point, yes, they're going to stream news. But most of the day, they're going to be playing music videos. And what kind of music videos are these that they're playing? What content are you consuming when you're in a public service vehicle? In the morning when you have your children and the children are going to school, or throughout the day when you have people of across ages using these public service vehicles. How are the matatu crew behaving? So it's about time that we started bringing some normalcy back into this, some sanity into this. And Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, he of the Kenya Film Classification Board, has taken up the mantle. He last year held a meeting with the matatu owners, and these were the bus owners and the matatu owners, Matatu Welfare Association. And they said, look, guys, people have been complaining about the kind of content, especially video content that's being played in these matatus with children on board. We need to come up with a way of ensuring that we don't play this kind of insane content. And they had an agreement that, this is what we're going to do. We'll go back and ask our members to start complying. We'll come up with our own code of self-regulation and ensure that we have the best kind of content that's being shown and being played in our matatus. This hasn't happened, and Ezekiel Mutua has said, now we're going to take this a notch higher, and we're going to ourselves to enter these matatus. When we find you playing raunchy content, we are going to, take measures against you. And I'm saying this morning, that may not be enough. The NTSA, National Transport Safety Authority, and the National Environment Management Authority have a mandate as well to play. And I say, let's deregister all matatus that have screens in them, that have extra speakers in them, starting today. Give them 3 months window. Say within 3 months, if you still have a screen, you are not going to be operating on our roads. We've got to remove obscenity from our public transport sector. This is what has begun. It's obscene. You are seeing a lot of, unrated videos being played in these matatus. You are seeing you are hearing a lot of, loud, but also X-rated music being played in these matatus. And what's the government doing about that? Nothing much. we need to take action and ensure that we remove no matatu should have a TV screen on board.
Well, looking at the genesis of all of this, before, when you look at public transport in the country, mostly it was the buses, right? That,
Yes.
used to ply a particular route. And then you had, interestingly enough, what Walter talked to us the other day about 7 aside or something, right?
Yep.
Where people sat facing each other and was taking them in different directions. And then looking at the onset of where people started playing music when the Nissans then came into existence, and then after that the bigger buses and such, and then the need for entertainment while people then were traveling from point A to point B. And said, okay, and then it moved from music till then, sitting in traffic, people needed a little bit more in terms of entertainment, and then it kind of opened the door to whatever it was that was going to be. So then you find that I have a lot of matatu operators right now who will tell you, if we don't do this, the likelihood of us getting passengers to full capacity on the routes back and forth into town or wherever is very low. If we don't do this, we're not going to get business, So it is the passengers at some level who are requesting for this kind of entertainment within the matatu. Because if we don't have it, we'll be out of business, really. But then, of course, the question comes in then, does that mean then that you're able then to play anything that you like or whatsoever without regarding who is there? Whether the people who are older, younger, really doesn't, come into play. So, of course, looking at why this was, why this was instituted in the first place, why did they go ahead with this? Because that they were...
How did this culture evolve?
This culture, because before, the matatus on the outside were really colorful, and that was one of the things that struck me. Really colorful cartoons, all sorts of things, different kinds of caricatures on matatus and such, and it was the thing to see. But then now it's more about what it is that you hear and what you're entertained with while on the journey, where you're going. So then, if we say this, how far then are we pressing on the rights of these individuals as businessmen to then do whatever it is that they want while operating, taking into consideration that it is a public means of transport? The public then needs to be protected.
If I take it a bit further, one of the things that characterized matatus was just how many people could be stuffed into that vehicle.
Right.
If you actually boarded a matatu, let's say going towards Thika, they're the ones I boarded the most when I was a student because I was at Kenyatta. It was then Kenyatta University College. Just when you thought the matatu was full
is when they added 3 more.
and you thought it was full because you were standing and you'd been pushed into a corner. So you, at best, you were in a bent position. But they knew. They just tell you, move this. Another space was created. You figure, surely you can't put no other person can fit in here. They'd stop.
Unless, City, you're the one who's actually stopped the matatu.
Yes.
And it looks full, but you're also thinking,
Yes,
well, I
there's
can feel
space.
this.
Precisely.
Ditatoshea.
But there were matatus you would board from Thika. They were express matatus. And that's where the Nissan came in. By the way, even when vehicles made by Toyota Corporation that looked like those Nissan, they were still called Nissans. Nissan became the generic name for a matatu.
For matatu.
But they'd fit not 4 of you, 5 of you in a row. That's when the term car square became popular. And I knew, if you sit with your feet together and you move forward, just slightly forward, then the person next to you now leans back. It creates space. Yes.
It's physics.
Yes, very physics. But the physics didn't help your circulation. By the time you go to Nairobi, you could barely walk. You needed some 5 minutes just to get circulation back into your system to be able to actually induce locomotion into your limbs. Okay? Now, that was one level of discomfort. The Michuki rules ended that. And they would say, this seat is meant for 4 people. So you will sit 4. This one is meant for 3. There'll be 3 of you. That was sanity. Meaning, the passenger became king. Now, if you grew up in Mombasa as I did, you would realize that the citizens of Mombasa had a sense of self-preservation that was amazing. They look at a matatu, it's full, they tell you they're not getting in. They'll wait for the next one. But by the same token, they would ask, kuna mziki?
Yes.
If it didn't have music,
They're not going. They're not boarding.
Even if there's space.
And this is now the rationale that was used by further ahead. This is the rationale that was then used by these owners.
It's in-flight
to say,
entertainment.
Thank you very much. And if we don't have this in-flight entertainment, we're not going to get passengers. We'll be stuck at the terminus.
Look, so this is where it began. Of course, there was a need to entertain people, and it makes sense. You know, it makes sense to play some music or to play something as we are traveling. It also makes sense for you to watch something. We've seen those Mombasa and long distance buses as well. They have now screens where you can actually select what you want to watch, and it's you who's making the choice.
Yes.
Select what you want to watch. They don't tell you this is what we are showing. Initially, of course, there are those buses that would now go and play whatever. They have one giant screen and you're watching for the longest distance that you're traveling. But yes, with the evolution, now you have, every seat, you get your own pair of headphones and you can watch whatever you want, just like you're on a flight.
Right.
That has evolved. This culture, however, is gotten to a point where, and it's over time, and people have complained about this over and over, even during the Machuki days, where the kind of content that's being played is it does not reflect the kind of audience that you're carrying. Or even if it does, even if you're saying that, yes, this is coming from Rongai, it passes through a university, so it's picking up students from Multimedia University, Catholic University, there are a couple of universities, and they're the ones who are coming to town. These youthful people want their kind of music. Yes, but what kind of music is that? Why is it that we regulate all other content and then we shouldn't regulate this kind of content? It has gone out, it has flown out of the window. And this is why we say we need to bring this sanity back. Because you've been given an opportunity to self-regulate. That meeting last year was, guys, come up with your own code of how you're going to regulate. Because you have failed to self-regulate, that has just clamped down on you.
It would be interesting to know if they felt that it was a problem. You see what I mean?
The bus owners?
The bus owners, if they felt that this was an issue, then you probably find that they would probably get into it a lot quicker. But for them, here they are and they don't see what the issue is.
The thing about, of course, this sector as well, you've got to remember. For example, the people who are meeting here. Edwin Mukabana is the chair of the Association of Bus Owners. These are the ones who run the KBSs, those buses, right? Matatu Owners, Matatu Welfare Association, Dixon Bogo was also represented. Some of these people, yes, they may look at it and they see the sense and the sanity. But who are the investors of these Manyanga Matatus? Those investors in those Manyanga Matatus, they just, for example, don't even believe
Do you remember
that these guys are their leaders.
They even wanted to regulate the coloring. Remember, that's when the yellow lines were brought in.
Yes.
Of course, that caused a bit of a furor because yellow lines were a trademark of taxis. But I don't think they had registered it as a trademark, not really. But during that era, they also tried to regulate the colors of the so-called Manyangas. But part of the attraction, remember, the majority of people who board these vehicles are younger. So those colors, as you say correctly, were meant to entice them. The music inside, those were meant to entice them. But the music, Eric, and you're right, does not have to be offensive.
It really doesn't. Because
it doesn't have to be offensive.
No, I'm just trying to imagine if anyone as a parent, if 15, 16-year-olds probably who's getting into a matatu, right, going to, or even 17, 18-year-old getting in, going to
from
college
high school
or whatever,
all the way to
high
college.
school, right, getting into a matatu, would not be comfortable with that kind of influence? Because if they're in traffic for an hour, you can imagine what it is that they're hearing or listening to.
But by the way,
one way.
It's not even just the hearing and listening.
What goes on in the matatu?
It's what happens, yes.
What
and
that culture encourages.
Yes.
Right.
Because it starts from that, actually, City.
Yes.
Just if I may interject.
You may.
The culture of the kind of art that we have on the matatus.
Yes.
We have described it as our culture. This is a matatu. Our matatus represent some certain form of culture.
They do.
When those matatu owners went and complained, no less to the president himself, the president said, all right, okay, you guys go back. Let's have graffiti back on our matatus because it represents something. This is something that's unique. You'll come to Kenya, to Nairobi, you will see this.
Right.
This is what you'll see in our matatu culture. This is our matatu culture. However, what else does it encourage? This, yes, we have very good graffiti on the matatus. And then you enter the matatu, it has loud music, huge giant speaker on the back seat, and then very many speakers are around the matatu. Now we've even removed windows, so you cannot even open these windows. So it's become an entire thingy that it's a
You're
contraption.
enclosed in there.
You're
yes.
enclosed. Loud music, giant screen. The bigger the screen. In fact, some of them even have
The
carved
better,
screens.
yeah.
A carved screen in the matatu playing this kind of stuff. So this culture, how much are we willing to let it, control us? Do we have any kind of control over it?
One of the things that people who are in advertising understand is how a repetition embeds something in your mind, and in so doing conditions you. For instance, if you in the days when traveling by road was the most popular mode of transport of travel, if you had a radio, which is what people had, and maybe a cassette player, but radio. If you're traveling from here to say Mombasa, you'll hear certain ads.
Yes.
Now, I understood how these things worked. I actually liked drinking Sprite. I liked drinking Sprite. But by the time we got to Mtito and Day, I ended up asking for a Coke. It was unconscious. I didn't think. But it's later on when we're talking about advertising and thinking about it, I realized I'd been listening to an ad. The Coke ad was frequent. So when we stopped and I asked for a drink, I said, give me a Coke.
And the sound effects.
Yes. That one.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Not
Okay.
pouring
Yes.
onto ice cubes.
Yes,
and
yes,
just feeling,
yes.
oh my goodness,
Good.
I'm quenched.
Delightful, because you're
Just have
tired,
this,
it's hot.
I'll be quenched.
Exactly.
Of my thirst.
And you'll ask for a first and a second. That messaging got to my system. There was one used to hear very often in the radio, and I think East African industries understood this. Pika kwa kimbo. Very simple. Pika kwa kimbo. 3 words. You'd hear it so often. You went into a shop, you would buy that kimbo without even thinking.
And I think then here the question is then how much more the negative stuff?
Now imagine.
Thank you.
Imagine.
Now I think you've gotten my message.
Imagine.
This is what you hear. A child will repeat that song without understanding what it's all about. They even think it's fun. If you have children, they will tell you what they hear. Just like you will understand if you have a child who stays home and they can talk. They will tell you what your house help does with the TV.
Yep. Ndu, tell us how the weather looks like in the country and around the world, and then we continue this conversation. Of course, we are discussing public service transport, public transport, and the obscenity in our public transport. And I'm saying this morning that we need to remove this obscenity. Good morning, 18 minutes past 7.
87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. The weather with Spice FM.
It's a clear morning in most parts of the city of Nairobi today at 14 degrees. We're going to expect mostly sunny conditions today with highs of 28 and lows of 14. In Nyeri at 14 degrees right now, it's going to be a sunny day, partly cloudy conditions to be experienced later in the day with highs of 27. In Malindi, holding strong at 27 degrees, partly cloudy with highs of 32 and lows of 25. A bit chilly in Nakuru this morning at 13 degrees, partly cloudy conditions, expect highs of 29 and lows of 12. In Eldoret at 12 degrees, it's going to be sunny through the day, partly cloudy conditions later, expect a low of 11 and a high of 26. In Mombasa at 26 degrees, partly cloudy conditions with highs of 32 and lows of 25. And finally in Malindi at 27 degrees, highs of 32 and lows of 26.
Sugar, spice, and everything nice. Alright, okay. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So our moral police, Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, the CEO of the Kenya Film Classification Board, has vowed to take up a fight with the matatu industry. And he says that we need to remove what he called, of course, Dr. Mutua will call it immoral content on our matatus. He says that these matatus are playing, a lot of them have giant TV screens in them, and they're playing music videos, and these music videos are unrated. And they should be rated. They should regulate what kind of content they're playing. Of course, it also goes into the kind of music that they play, audio. So they have giant speakers in them. They have giant screens, and they're playing all this kind of content. This is immoral. Is it wrong? Is it right? Is it wrong? Of course, there are those that go back and say, look, if I board a matatu and I know it has loud music, I am making a choice. And you should allow me to make my own choice.
Right.
You should allow me to get on board a matatu if this is what it's going to play. How are you going to regulate C.T. Muga from playing the same kind of stuff in his own
car.
private car?
Yeah.
If he chooses to do, let him do it, right? So the same thing that those who are arguing against Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, that's what they're saying. But I am saying, no. We need to rain down on this kind of issue. We need to step back and say, this content, it's public transport, you should regulate the kind of content we have. And because they had a meeting with the matatu owners, and the matatu owners were told, come up with a code on how we can work together to ensure that, yes, we give you a rating. This is the kind of music you can play. This is the kind of videos you can play. This is what is allowed even in any sort of public place. This is according to the law. They didn't come up with it. Today I'm saying, give them 3 months. Remove all those screens. Remove all those speakers from these public matatus. Remove.
I think we can't ignore the fact that, of course, all of this came around the time where there were increased levels of, unfortunately, assault to quite a number of young girls that actually took place in matatus. And there was a report that was actually done that came out in 2018 about the fact that within matatus is where we actually found, and we're talking about the big ones with the music and everything, is where we found that there was quite a lot of assault of the young women who were on these matatus. And of course, the music culture and the non-ratedness of some of the entertainment that was there contributed to this directly. And they could see a direct correlation between the music and the atmosphere and the culture there, and then the assault that was meted upon these young girls. So I do not know if this report, because if it fueled then this decision to say, guys, we need to have a conversation about what's going on, because we cannot continue to allow this to happen, especially when you have the tales of young girls saying, this happened to me when I was sitting in a matatu. This is the culture. This is something that is accepted.
There's a lot of molestation
until when you see,
happens.
absolutely, until when you see a matatu, a certain kind playing a certain, within this matatu, anything goes, and this is one of the places where it is rife. It happens. The music, the videos that they watch on a journey that would maybe take 15 minutes, but they're taken at traffic hour. Honestly, really, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 7 in the morning. These are things that are going on, and we can't turn a blind eye to them. And of course, this culture of the music and the entertainment and all of the lewd stuff that's shown contributes heavily to it. A girl going to campus comes back and tells her parents she's been violated in a matatu. And the cases were quite high. For a report to have been done, it was not 1 or 2 isolated cases. And I think definitely this needs to be paid attention to. And in this case, I would say absolutely. Ezekiel Mutua and his team need to actually go ham and tongs on this and say, look, folks, we cannot allow this to happen. If for that alone, to get rid of the molestation and abuse that we see happening within these vehicles, if for that alone, it needs to stop.
In the world of sport, 2 things have come to the fore in the very recent past. One is in football, and the harm that heading that football does to people's minds. In fact, in the US, they've banned heading in playing football among young people. And it's something they're examining. And why this is so is, it was noticed that among people who'd played international football, when they get to a certain age, many of them started exhibiting conditions of the mind that you would find in much older people, Alzheimer's and the like. Now, of interest, they also found that people who've played competitive rugby at international level, many of them got to a certain age, died. It was a stroke, some hemorrhaging, blood clot, and a lot of it had to do with the collision, the nature of the sport.
Yep.
The consequences that are seen are dire. And if you look at it, you can actually trace and relate the death, what caused it, to the sport that they played. Now, what you hear is far more insidious than that, because it actually influences your thinking, and in so doing, it influences your behavior. If somebody listens to music that is violent all the time, you'd be amazed at how easily you will be inclined towards violence. Because music doesn't just feed into your brain, it feeds into your system.
Yep.
So your whole system is geared in a certain direction. To understand it, you just need to listen to music that is calming and soothing. The effect it has. If the music is slow, if the music is only instrumental, it has a certain effect on you, and it's almost immediate. Your whole outlook and ambience changes. The moment it's loud, there's drums, and there's a beat to it. Again, it changes. In the 70s, beginning late 60s and 70s, when discos came to the fore, the nature of disco by its very existence, it had to be loud. 20 years down the line, the very many people who began the culture of discos, they noticed that in the West, there were many people who started having hearing problems.
Yeah.
And the reason was because they'd been damaging their eardrums all along and they didn't even know. And it started with somebody saying something, you repeat again, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
And you're almost shouting, and the person doesn't realize that the hearing has been
It's the
impaired.
effect of what they were doing.
It catches up with you. Now, this one is worse because something that has influenced your mind and your thinking isn't going to end in a day or two. You're going to carry on with it. And it's something that you're going to... Nigeria has some of the strictest laws on torture on this continent. Strictest. But a problem that has arisen in Nigeria in recent past is that despite these laws, people are still being tortured. And by police. So now, you see, it becomes a bit tricky because the police are the ones who are supposed to arrest these offenders.
Yes.
So are you going to see a situation where they arrest each other?
Of course not.
Now, why am I bringing in the issue of torture, police, and arrest? It's because for these laws to be in place, it meant that these were problems that the society had seen for so long. They said, no, you have to legislate something that puts a
must be
halt
done.
to this. But yes, you have the laws, but you haven't changed the minds of the people. Now, music does that. It creates a certain mindset, and the effect of which will be felt later on, and with a large number of people and with disastrous consequences. So yes, Eric, this one, I am not going to cast any aspersions into what you're saying. This music, something needs to be done, and has to be done fast, and has to be firm. It cannot, you cannot watch a culture that you know is destructive evolving, and you're just watching it
sit back
evolve
and say, oh,
Yes.
yeah, come
yeah,
on.
you know it's a bad thing, and then it just continues.
It's a culture.
No, it's ridiculous.
It's creativity.
No,
We've got to
I'm
allow
sorry,
creativity
but
to happen.
On one, I won't forget one occasion getting into one of these large matatus, whatever, and there was a music video that was showing, and I thought to myself, okay, I've been here for 10 minutes, maybe 10, 12 minutes at most was the duration of my journey, and the stuff that I saw on the screen. Okay, I'm able to handle a lot of things, but I thought to myself, just looking and studying the matatu culture in this country, you have
You
people.
cringe.
Oh my goodness!
What you were just watching and you're wondering.
And it's one music video, and by the time I was done, I was like, what is
If
this?
you're
And then
watching
you
it
can
with a
imagine,
child, you know your presence.
That's it.
you don't even know where to look.
No,
And you can't tell
you
a child.
cover your
stop.
child's face.
don't look, and they'll probably think if I'm with mommy or daddy and they're watching, you know, in their mind,
fine.
it can't be that bad.
But this is the thing. We have, again, and I have also, because of, circles that I discuss with, you have young girls, and we're looking at the ages between 12 and 20, who get on matatus, not necessarily because they're going anywhere. You understand what I'm saying? They may have played hooky from school, okay? So they're skipping class, they're skipping school, to ride on the matatu route to and fro, just for the fun of it. So you can imagine, just like CT is saying, the conditioning that is happening, even take between the hours of 12 and 4 o'clock. Back and forth, watching this stuff, listening to this stuff, being in the company of individuals who have been conditioned by this stuff over time. What do you think is going to happen?
When you complain about some songs, the new style in Kenya, gengeton. So some of these songs that we were complaining about, what Mutua was talking about here the other day, a song like Tarimbo, we talked about Tarimbo and said, no, that song should actually not be played anywhere, right? So of course it gets its play on matatus. It'll not be played on TV. It'll not be played on radio. Where do you think it's going to be played in?
That's it.
Because there's
it's
nobody.
open society. It's
nobody regulating
open
that
season
area.
for anybody
So
when
what-
it comes to that.
These kind of songs that we wonder, who came up with this? And yes, they'll talk about creativity, but then they've gone overboard. This is why it's playing. And this culture has led into, the kind of behavior that we've seen. A couple of years ago, I think 1 or 2 years ago, there was something happening, a matatu thing at Cooperative College in Karen. And you saw that. So students were hanging on to the matatu. This matatu went too fast. It was taking a corner. And of course, it toppled over. Some students died. And this is just because of that mindset that they have. This matatu culture thing that we call matatu culture, if we don't regulate it and don't put some stops into some of these things that are happening, we are basically watching our generations just going down and getting wasted. And I say, Ezekiel Mutua, this is what you've started, go ahead. I'm actually going beyond that and saying, yes, Ezekiel Mutua has done what he could have done. He has gone and sat down with the stakeholders and told them, stakeholders, please, let's work together, come up with regulations. They haven't come up with those regulations. the next thing should happen. Remove all these screens and loudspeakers from matatus. Say any matatu that goes for inspection, because every matatu must go for inspection once a year to get the annual license to operate.
Yes.
That when they go for inspection, the first thing they should be told is remove tower screen, tower PSV. In the next 3 months, all matatus should go back for inspection. Remove all these things. In the 4th month, any matatu that has a giant screen or those large speakers should not be allowed to operate on our roads. Good morning, 7:30. Let's take a look at traffic.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Traffic.
All right. So we have quite a number of people opting to walk this morning. Langata Road is a parking lot. Mombasa Road at a standstill. Now, when we say standstill, we mean that it is grid-locked, bumper to bumper, and nobody's moving. From an aerial view right around Nyayo Stadium along Mombasa Road, from Bellevue towards Nyayo Stadium, roundabout is absolutely packed. It's not moving. Langata and Magathi Way under lockdown. Traffic is bumper to bumper. So, of course, the thing is, don't expect folks to be early today because nothing is moving. Coming out of Wayaki Way and then joining the University of Nairobi roundabout is not moving either. Forest Road Tunnel is under the tunnel, actually, is bumper to bumper. The same for the Pangani underpass coming off of Thika Road. So everywhere you look towards today is traffic. Of course, we know that this is because of the closure of certain roads within the CBD, and so that affects anything coming in and out. Let us know if you find an alternative. I know some people have found alternatives but then have gotten stuck there as well. Let us know what you see. Spice FM KE on Twitter, 0719 012 600. Give us a call.
How are you? Breathing life into the 80s. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Yes, we're broadcasting in Nairobi, 94.4. We're in Mombasa, 87.9. In Kisumu, 102.5. 96.0 in Nakuru. 96.7 Eldoret. 90.9 in Nyeri. 97.7 in Malindi. We're also on www.spicefm.co.ke, as well as our social media platforms, live streaming on Facebook, Spice FM KE, and Twitter at Spice FM KE, as well as YouTube. Spice FM KE is a channel. This Situation Room comes to you every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. In the room, we have Eric Latif, Siti Muga, and Nduoko. Just as we continue the conversation, of course, we also bring you up to speed with what's happening around the city. Today being the final day of the former President Daniel Arap Moi's body lying in state in Parliament for public viewing. The body has already arrived in Parliament, and people are now going to start viewing shortly. Of course, we're already seeing people have lined up at outside Parliament buildings to go and view this body. This is a once in a lifetime. It's a generational thing.
No, it is. And also, remember the discussions around this early on when we were talking about how people feel that all this eulogizing of the former president amounts to sanitizing what he did. If you contextualize anything, then the subject matter will get a different hue, so to speak. Remember, Moi stopped being president in the year 2002. We are on the second president after Moi, meaning, our fourth president in this country. Now, the experiences that Kenyans have gone through the Moi era and now the Kibaki era, afford them the opportunity to again look at the Moi era in perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, and that perspective, why it's likely to be positive is because, one, remember we start off by saying that it's people don't want to remember bad things that they consider terrible. But then they look at what they're going through now and think back. Again, the mind tends to be hazy on such matters also. But they'll figure and say, things weren't that bad. Why? Because it's something in the distant past, and memory being what it is far better to think of the good things of that past than to face the difficulties that you currently have.
Yeah.
It's the way the mind works. So it isn't as though one presidency is bad. Remember, all these presidencies have to be seen in light of the times in which they were in place. The Moi era, unfortunately, because it lasted 24 years, it straddled some very, very big changes in the history of the universe. Not just this country, But significantly, these are things that unless, Eric, and again, you brought this up, unless we talk about these things openly, instead of talking about them, just say, look, this is what happened. Let's talk about it. Okay? Let's not cast judgment. It's what happened. If the Wagala massacre, it happened. Let's look at it. If we look at everything, when the UASU was closed, when Maendeleo Wanawake was merged into KANU, let's look at these things and examine them and have a frank discussion about them and say, yes, because all these things have contributed to exactly where we are today. All these narratives we keep dealing with, some of the matters that even this current president deals with, some of them are not of their making.
It's context.
Yes, it's context. And it's something that happened over time. The full brunt of it is now being felt now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Indeed. And of course, we'll discuss about women and leadership and what Moi did in those years. When NARC Kenya Party leader Martha Karua joins us in the next hour from 8 a.m., she'll be here. She'll be talking about NARC Kenya and its politics. But also we'll ask her about her years in serving with President Daniel Arap Moi. She, of course, was a magistrate at some point when Moi was a president, so we'll hear from her on that. Yes, back to the conversation. We're talking about public service transport and this insanity that has permeated itself in there. And Dr. Ezekiel Mutua is saying, I'm going to take this fight to the matatu sector. I'm going to take this to the matatu industry. And this morning we are saying, I think we've come to an agreement that, yes, we support what Dr. Ezekiel Mutua wants to do. And this is bring sanity back into the public sector because of the kind of content that is being played in these public matatus. Videos and of course as well as audio music. Let's open up the phone lines as well so we can hear what you think about this. 0719 012 600.
Why I think it's important to have these conversations is that, or these conversations and with regularity, is that if we look at the business owners or the matatu owners, they would definitely not look at it from this point of view in terms of the moral degradation that goes on with and in this case, it's not just young people, guys. It's not just young people. It's anybody who
boards.
is boarding. Okay, because even if you would say that you are of the highest moral standing or repute, and then you get into this kind of conditioning, that is likely to be imbalanced, right? So it really doesn't matter who it is that enters into these. It just matters that there are individuals getting in, and that their morality in one way or another needs to be protected. Now, this conditioning aspect is actually, it's very, very important. I think that's the crux of the matter, because then people get to understand, look, this is something that they hear over and over and over again, and that they begin to imbibe. Now, if they understand it from that point of view, you'll find that perhaps then they would be interested, because at the end of the day, you want to protect your business, and it's these individuals who bring the business back to you. But if everybody can understand from that point of view, and I think it has to, for Ezekiel Mutua and his team, anybody else who's going to come into this, everybody, it has to come from a point of understanding. We're not saying stop because we want to be punitive. We're saying stop with an understanding that this is what could happen if you don't. And I think it's very important.
Would we be dealing with just the symptoms if we did that? Because if you look at it, what when Minister Michuki said all matatus should have uniform color, remove this graffiti, we looked back at that, and of course they fought back and they talked about it and said, look, this represents our culture. There's a creative culture that we have in this country, and it's best exemplified in the matatu sector. You see the kind of creativity we have, the kind of graffiti. Actually, if you look at some of that stuff, that you wonder, wow, we have creatives in this country. The kind of stuff that they put there.
I don't think the creativity was actually the issue, Eric, if you think about it. Ask yourself how, even in everyday conversation, how we've normalized 4-letter words.
Yeah.
Just think, why? A lot of it you hear in music. Music is where you hear it more than anywhere else in conversation. But it's become normal. Someone can actually construct an entire sentence with 4-letter words. Sentence. And it's become normal. Every description, people no longer say gosh. They don't say wow. No.
They don't say wow?
No, they don't say wow.
Okay.
They don't say gosh.
Gosh, yes. There are 4-letter profanities that are the exclamation marks that are considered normal. Now, that we don't talk about it is what exemplifies the normalcy that these things have been given. And there was a time these were frowned upon.
Yeah.
So we stopped frowning upon them. By so doing, we said, oh, they're okay. They're not okay. This really is the point. It's not okay.
But where do we draw the line, though, City?
You know,
because when we say this, so we are saying yes, we support Dr. Ezekiel Mutua, but to what extent? Or how much rope are we giving him?
It's not even so much giving him rope. Huh? We've had Ezekiel Mutua has come to the studio. He has called in and spoken to us on more than one occasion. And if you listen to the logic behind what he's saying, it's not something difficult to understand. One is one of preservation of certain moral standards. The other is simply understanding that there's something that falls into a categorization of adult content. And his fight was not that you shouldn't hear it. He was saying, no. You cannot have this in the public domain where even children are listening to it. There are forums where you can have it and you can play it, where they're only adults. You're an adult, deal with it there.
It's about rating.
Yes, but you can't have this adult content being spread among people who don't have the capacity to actually wait and balance it. You're giving them and you put them under undue pressure, and you're exposing them to something that at their age they actually shouldn't be exposed to. That's what he was saying. He wasn't saying ban it. He was saying no. Pause and think. Where should this be listened to? That's what he was saying.
There are forums where this should be listened to, and at this point, we're not going to allow it to happen. We talk about the fact that there's degradation at so many levels, and this is one way that we can actually cut it out and say, okay, well, let's go to zero. Let's reset and say, okay, in this place, folks, not here. Perhaps somewhere else, especially because we've seen some of the things that come out as a result of it. I mean, we talked about the assault that happens on young girls between 12 and 20. And one of the sectors that it happens rife is in the matatu industry. You can imagine your daughter, okay?
Boarded a matatu,
comes home and tells you how she's been assaulted in a matatu.
By
right?
people she doesn't know. So you don't even know who to go after.
Because of that culture. So you don't know. Do you go after the driver? Do you go after the conductor? Do you go after the individual who is also taking a ride from point A to point B with his boys? Who do you ask? Which questions do you ask?
And how is it that people change from understanding how to treat others with respect to the point where the thought that comes in the mind of these young people is to molest a young girl?
Exactly.
I mean, when did that change come about? And when did it appear to be normal? Remember, there's been the longest debate, even in this country, about how women should dress in public. And there were people who even said that they should ban miniskirts, they should ban all sorts of things, all right? We even had cases of women being stripped naked.
Yes, we did.
It happened 1 or 2 occasions, it stopped, okay? There are places where it keeps happening. I was watching Yahoo News, something very interesting, the Maldives. The police wanted to cover a certain tourist of British origin. They said the bathing suit she was wearing, or the swimsuit, was too skimpy.
Indecent exposure.
Yes, exactly. And they wanted to cover her. As far as she was concerned, she was being molested by the police because they're all men.
Yeah.
Right? If you watch the video, it's like someone was trying to cover her with some sort of towel or something, and she was fighting back. So this wasn't working very well. So one held her and was carrying her. Now, if you... Why didn't they bring a woman policeman to hold her? And now, but the authorities have since apologized. Now, understand, if you watch it carefully, it's not as though they set to harass her. No. They actually went to... It started off by... Madam, please, you just...
Cover up.
Yes, and what? My rights are being infringed.
How
upon.
can
on the
you
beach.
tell me?
Yes, it's on the beach. Now, there are places on this planet where you have nude beaches. So you can go there and be as skimpy as you like. Okay? It's perfectly all right.
But there.
Their law does not allow it.
Precisely.
Exactly. Do it there.
There, yes. And you need to understand this. But this was an adult. These differences will always arise. They will always be there. If you are in my generation and you look at the pictures that our mothers took, those chicks were minis.
Yes.
And serious minis. Serious.
Those chicks shouldn't even tell us not to wear minis because the things that they did, my goodness, I can't even compare to the one.
And then there was a garment called hot pants. Yes.
The hot pants and the platforms.
Yes,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Those
Yes.
things
Now,
existed. They
all
happened.
I'm saying is that they're generational, but they were considered okay. So why is it now that why is it now being called indecent exposure? The point that I think one brings to the fore here is a discussion as to what is considered morally repugnant and what should be age restricted. It's not just a debate of right and wrong. And this is what people must understand, that you're not being told don't create, you're just being told no. This one fits here. And in this forum, you're okay with that. Here, it's not permitted. Now, again, it's a debate that has to be crafted well. Otherwise, it will not achieve the results that it's intended. It's be seen as punitive. It will be seen as restrictive.
This is the thing that I was saying at this point, because now whomever is going to be the watchdog, or whoever is the watchdog or the custodian, the conversation needs to be had from a point of comprehension, for people to understand what really happens if you don't regulate this kind of thing. So we're not coming to punish you. We're not coming to say that your rights are being infringed on. We're saying this is what we're trying to safeguard at the end of the day. And I think it must be delicate and sensitive at certain points, so that everybody is in understanding.
But you
because
realize
if you have
this
people,
audience is not willing to have that conversation.
then in this, so you're saying because they're not willing to
The
have the
same
conversation,
thing.
then it must be punitive?
Look at the kind of backlash that Dr. Ezekiel Mutua gets. Whenever
It's
he talks
quite
about
something.
this content should not be aired, this content should not be aired,
Whoa.
the kind of backlash, it comes from a point of, why are you trying to restrict our freedoms and rights? What is it that you want? Who made you the moral police?
Who made you
Who
God?
made you my mother? Right? If my mother has no problem, who are you, Dr. Mutua? This is where we're coming from. So, yes, we can say we need to entrench
So are you saying that it
awareness.
needs to be punitive at this point?
No, it is
because
viewed. But no,
if
it is
the conversation
viewed.
Over time.
if the conversation can't be had, whereby people are not willing to listen, as you've said, for example, people are not willing to listen because you're infringing on my rights. Who told you that I'm supposed to listen to you?
What
right?
I'm saying
this is my business.
that
I can do
threshold,
what I
before
want.
we get to that threshold, it's going to take us a long time. Let's start by removing the music and then have this conversation simultaneously. But first of all, let's remove it. And then let's have the conversation, because we are not saying remove this music and never allow it to be played anywhere, even
Got
in
it.
private confines. But let's have a conversation. But first of all, come off the public sector. Same way we say, do not broadcast these things on TV. Do not play them on radio.
Stop it first, and then let's talk.
Stop it. And then let's have a conversation. This is what happens when you consume wrong content.
Rating is an accepted form of doing things the world over.
Yeah.
Even when you apply to cable TV, whether it's Zuku, whether it's whatever, even they have their systems where you have parental control. Why? Because it has long been understood there's content that is intended for a certain age group, and it's understood. And what Ezekiel Mutua is talking about is not something that he's invented. No. It's been there even in what you may call traditional society, even in the most permissive of societies. Believe me, they have these categorizations.
Absolutely, they do.
Indeed. It's 12 minutes to 8 o'clock. Good morning. This is a Situation Room. We have opened the phone lines now, 0719-012-600, 0719-012-600. Should indecent content, this is what we call stuff that requires parental control and parental guidance, unrated stuff, should it be removed from public matatus everywhere in the country? Join in the conversation, 0719-012-600.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Spice FM, Nairobi.
So say we ban this stuff. I'm saying let's do the first thing. Give them a period for the next 3 months. All matatus go back for inspection. And the only thing that's being inspected now, if you've already had your license renewed, so it means that mechanically you've been inspected. We're just doing an inspection of your entertainment system. If you've got giant screens, remove them. If you've got giant speakers, remove them. And giant speakers is because there's a law as well. The NEMA regulations talk about what kind of music, what kind of decibels you need to have in public places.
Right.
And
Do
it
they
says
adhere to those?
they don't.
Either they don't.
And you can
Sorry,
look
go
at a
ahead.
speaker
Right.
and see this speaker, of course, is going to exceed 84 decibels of music.
Meaning it can puncture your eardrum.
Yes.
It can.
If it can exceed this, then remove it from this public transport vehicle. This is what I'm saying for the next 3 months. Let's not dilly-dally and say, let's have a conversation again in the matatu sector. We need to start a campaign. No. Drastic, immediate.
There are decisions you make for the public good. They don't necessarily have to be popular. Okay? What it is, it brings about sanity. If you took it to the side and say, okay, no music in any public transport. Simple. Or if you're going to play music, it has to be this. Believe me, there'll be noise.
Of course, there's going to be noise, but people would adhere.
It's not as though you're being given a choice. You know, this is not subject for debate.
Yeah.
If you want to, if this is the business
you want to be on the road,
this is what you're going to do.
This is true, and we saw this kind of thing. I think we know that such a move would work because we saw it when the late John Mishuki did this, and he said, "Look, I'm not asking you. I'm not
just
saying let's have a conversation.
This is it.
We will have speed governors. We will have seat belts, and these fellas are going to wear uniforms."
Let's go to the
because
phone
we're going
lines.
to bring sanity on the roads. I'm not asking. This is what we are going to do.
0719-012-600. Daniel in Kisumu, good morning.
Yes, good morning, City and the team.
Good morning.
Sir.
Yes, you know, with innovation, we don't want to bedevil this innovation, but what it comes with it, to menace so far, is now spoiling the social fabric of the community. I'm staying in Kisumu, and whatever I've seen currently is that the vehicle that carries the students, the school children,
Yep.
they are having those screens, and mind you that these children always glue their on the screens, but the content there. You know, the content are just not in conformity with their age. And then what they say is that whatever Ezekiel Mutua said was in line with maintaining our social well-being. But we've seen Matatu insanity for the rest of the years. When this insanity now comes in to be the content based in that it infiltrate to the minds of the young kids, I think it is quite catastrophic.
Yes.
So it's just right. It's just right to maybe offer to give out the ban, because you know whatever is happening is that those things, those screens there, they control the content. The owners of this vehicle, they control the content.
Yes.
Yeah, it's them who control the content. And then whatever they put there, even if you as a passenger, you raise a voice, then you are deemed that you are not supposed even to talk about it. You're
told to get out. Daniel, thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you.
Asante sana. Have a good day in Kisumu. 0719-012-600. Should explicit content be removed completely from public transport? This is the conversation we're having this morning. Should explicit content be removed completely from our public transport? Ezekiel Mutua says, yes, we've already had a conversation with the Matatu owners. They agreed that they're going to come up with some code in which they're going to regulate, self-regulation. They haven't come up with that. So now the next thing we want to do is to push for a complete ban of these things. And I'm saying, yes, we need to have this. We need to get to that point where, say, remove, and then let's have a conversation, because you're clearly not going to do what you're supposed to be doing.
You know, once upon a time, you could smoke anywhere. You could smoke in the office. You could smoke in public transport. You could smoke anywhere and inconvenience everybody. And when they first said there have to be specific designated areas for smoking, again, there was a fuss. Right now, it's the most normal thing. Normal. People don't even think twice.
Yep.
People
you want to smoke, look for a designated
you
smoking
will
You have
area.
people saying, hey, you know, there's a smoking
you
area
will
over
not
there, yeah.
enter any building smoking a cigarette. You won't.
Yes.
You won't even walk around smoking. Why? Because it was understood this is a health hazard. Okay? And you have to take steps. They
Yep.
were taken. It's actually fascinating. Even in planes, by the once upon a time, people used to smoke in planes, and then they improved and said smoking section.
Yeah. And now this is a no-smoking flight.
You don't smoke. It's as simple as that.
As that.
And
Back
with
to the phone line, City.
Yes.
Mombasa, from Mombasa. Vivian, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We're
Good
fine,
morning,
thank you,
Vivian.
Great. I would just suggest that they are removed. No asking. It's embarrassing to sit in a mat and see these gyrating ladies and funny songs with funny vocabulary. And unashanga, as a parent, you're sitting next to your daughter. What do you cover her eyes? And then this drives the drivers and conductors to behave funnily, especially when you have conductors standing next to you,
Yep.
and they also want to touch your funny parts or move closer to you, because of what they're watching every day, what they're feeding their minds. So my suggestion would be remove them. Remove them completely. No negotiating.
Zitoke.
Just the Michuki way.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Vivian.
Zitoke. Hakuna kubembelezana.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Vivian.
Vivian.
0719-012-600. What do you think? We have now when you talk about such kind of things, because this is how the crews behave. This culture has endeared itself into a way where the crews, they see it as normal.
And
You're a
we should
woman,
shudder.
I'm a man.
We should shudder. I
Groping is
looked
normal.
at CT's face when Vivian said the words that he did, and his eyes opened up a little wider and said, yeah, that should be the reaction. We should shudder when things like this are happening in public, no less. And to say that this is what is
these are young
happening as a
people.
result of this conditioning. And if we cannot draw the parallels between the two, then perhaps we've gone even further down than we actually thought, right? We still should shudder, and we should still raise our eyebrows at things like this and say, no, absolutely, this cannot happen.
For the longest time, when we deregularize many things and that the governments are even licensing the distillation and the brewing of alcohol. There are many people who got into this business and they were actually producing poison. Now, the damage isn't spoken about loudly enough, and you can never speak about loud enough. There's an entire generation that was lost to this alcohol. Entire. Some were blind, some became ineffective. In short, people died long before their time. Lives were destroyed. Why? Because someone didn't step in and say, you are not going to produce this thing.
Yep.
Simple. No, not that you produce it this way, stop. We're not licensing you. Yes. Now, when you look at what happens when certain things that are clearly harmful are not regulated, and you look at the consequences, you want to ask yourself, do you really want to see a situation that is clearly evolving negatively, and then you want to sit back and do nothing
And
about
just let it now go into
Yes,
flames
yes.
completely.
In the name of creativity.
Absolutely
Damn
not.
creativity.
Absolutely.
Channel that creativity elsewhere. Okay? It can't be in promiscuity. It can't be in lewd behavior. No.
It can't be an assault.
No.
It
no,
can't.
No.
It can't be that this creativity that you've worked in the trenches over time, this is the result that you get.
Yes.
Absolutely not.
This is a public display of your creativity.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. Remember, I'm going back to what I said earlier on. Look at how 4-letter words have crept into conversation so that it's considered normal. There are certain age groups where people will have entire conversations that a sentence is constructed by swear words or 4-letter words. A sentence. And it's considered normal. Is that really normal? Is it really normal? When every exclamation is a 4-letter word.
It's not normal, and it shouldn't be normal.
And if you think it is, you should say, no, look, for me that isn't normal.
Mahali tumefika.
No. I will not accept it as being normal.
Yeah.
There are other ways in which you can actually describe what you're describing without using a 4-letter word.
Indeed. The conversation continues on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE on Twitter, as well as YouTube, Spice FM KE. In the next hour, we'll be joined by Martha Karua, the NARC Kenya party leader. We'll be talking to her about NARC Kenya and its strategies come for 2022. Of course, we'll be asking whether NARC Kenya is supportive of the BBI agenda. We'll also be asking her to give us her experience of working under and with the former President Daniel Toroitich arap Moi. First, let's take a look at traffic, and then the conversation continues. It's 8 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM.
Right, because
Kisumu.
Langata Road is at a standstill, folks are asking if that is one of the roads that has been closed today. No, it hasn't. It's just that now trying to feed into the city using the Timor roundabout or then going towards Bagathi Way, you're not able to move because of the fact that Valley Road has been closed. and also Ralph Bunch Road has been closed, and using that as an option to get into the city is not happening. So it has not been closed. You're just going to have to go very slowly because people are only using one option to get out. All right, Muthaiga, Kiambu Road, what we see, Kiambu Road now, we're at 8 lanes, of course, trying to get into the city. Stuck on Mombasa Road for the last 1 hour. It is a parking lot. We have a gridlock there as well. All signs of Embakasi in and outbound to the city. It is not moving. We know why. So we're just going to ask that you exercise patience in terms of an alternative for the eastern and southern bypasses. Not so much of great news, guys, because that also is chock blocked. In a short while, that should open up a little bit as more and more people get where they're going. We will let you know. If you find an alternative or you see a way out, please do let us know on Twitter, SpiceFMKE, or give us a call or send us a message on 0719 012 600.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's also Kenya's biggest conversation, and thank you very much for tuning in this and every morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. This is the one and only talk show on Kenyan radio in the morning that deals with matters of policy, of politics, of governance, issues that affect the society, not discussing raunchy stuff. 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, Eldoret 96.7, Nyeri 90.9, and Malindi 97.7. Also broadcasting on our digital platforms, www.spicefm.co.ke, Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE on Twitter, as well as our YouTube channel, Spice FM KE. We are also on Instagram. Spice FM KE is our Instagram handle as well. So just before we move on, there's a comment here that came in on Facebook. If you look at the foreign countries, a lot of the explicit art is making millions and some billions in the exotic studios. These artists are bringing a lot of consumers from all over the world and are also invited to many countries because of their product that brings a sense of freedom. However, here in Africa, we regulate these explicit content, but however, we fail to notice the presence it brings out, not just to the natives, but also the foreigners. So he's saying, well, we are too focused on things that are explicit and not forgetting that, even in most of the renowned artists in the world.
Well, that's where the danger
the kind
lies.
of stuff that they produce.
That's where the danger lies. I mean, because, at some point, are we going to say then anything goes? Unfortunately, I think there's still a preservation of certain morals that needs to be high on our agenda, because it permeates into other areas that we don't even understand or that we don't even know. We're not saying the same kind of thing, but just the letdown of standards across the board then allows certain other things to be infected. And we can't ignore the danger that lies in that. If we're going to be deliberate and say that there's certain things that need to be protected, then I think we need to. We definitely need to. Otherwise, it'll be a banana republic. Anything goes. Do whatever. Yeah. Do whatever you want to do. Say whatever you want to say. Be in whatever company you want to be. And then, who's to say that, morals need to be protected?
You can't hold back my creativity.
Of course you can. It's not a question of holding up.
Yes, you can. City says, what do you mean? Of course you can.
Everything we do, whether we like it or not, has to be contextualized within what is actually acceptable. It can range. Certainly, there is a range acceptable by the majority, but there has to be a certain universal acceptance to it. And where universal is not the entire country, but a large enough group who feel it is okay. Now, unfortunately, the issue of loud music, the issue of lewd behavior, it's something that very many people do not like. They may keep quiet about it, but they don't like it. And many people just don't have a forum or a place where they can actually voice their concerns. And if they do, they will voice their concerns and say, this stuff actually disturbs me. Kenyans are fairly...
And they expect somebody else, of course. to
Yes.
take-
We are fairly conservative. That actually is the truth of the matter. And this is what the creative types want to say, that this conservativeness actually limits creativity. I would say it gives it a modicum of balance. Because anything left into free fall can be destructive. It doesn't matter how good it is. That balance always has to be in place. And this is what this discussion does. Pause, think, have the balance.
Head back.
Yes, if you want to deliver a message, is that the only way? Do you want to deliver a message by causing offense to as many people as you possibly can? Or do you want to find a way of ensuring that you are communicating in a way that's acceptable and in a way that causes or brings about the reflection that you want? If your idea is to cause as a furor and to raise as much dust as possible, then okay,
Carry on.
carry on, and there will be
There will
consequences.
be consequences.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think, we still, like I said, those shudder moments don't just play in this anymore. The things that you would not ordinarily do in front of your mother, or the things that you would not say in front of her, or things that you would not watch in their presence. Do you remember when it was that, you were growing up, that you watched the program in front of your mom, and there was a scene that came up, and
you
didn't
moved.
know, should the earth swallow me, or where do I actually need to look? And we've lost those
You take
moments,
the action,
unfortunately.
you move.
Even
Absolutely.
classifications have differed, because if I recall, when I was probably in secondary school, adults only were a movie where people were kissing.
Yeah.
If they were kissing and then the screen went dark, proof of age required.
We'll be joined shortly by Martha Karua, like we've been saying. She's the NARC Kenya party leader. But let's take this one call from Zachary, a friend in Nakuru, to chime in on this conversation. Zachary, good morning.
Oh, morning, guys.
Good morning, Zachary.
I hope you have had a nice weekend.
Yes, we
Thank
did.
you.
Okay, I too did.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent most of my time reading the good archive that the press guys have done on our former president.
Good stuff, good stuff. Zachary, what do you
So
think
now
about this illicit content?
And now, let me tell you our unfortunate fate is that this generation thinks that it is the one that is inventing, let me say, sex. Yeah? And,
It came before them, eh?
Everybody. Look at our art, our graffiti, our social media, our radio stations, except now Spice FM, the situation room. Everybody else is thinking of, he is inventing sex, And therefore, their discussion and their thinking revolves around that, which is unfortunate, okay? The so-called studio creativity is not, it's not helping us, actually, going by the way that we are heading,
Yep.
If you look at the kind of music that we listen into when we enter into public transport, in fact, I call it organized noise. It's no music. Music is art. And therefore, it should be regulated, actually. And we should let us, you guys, you are older than me, okay? you should back on telling everybody who cares to listen that we are a product of sex. No, we are not inventing it, actually.
There's nothing new.
There's nothing new.
There is nothing new. There is nothing new. Therefore, let Mr. Mutua come and control the situation. And, things are going to be good to go.
Thank you, Zachary.
Otherwise, you have a nice day.
You too, and have a good day. And salimia watu wa Nakuru.
Thank you very much, Zachary.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. So NARC Kenya is the party leader of, the party leader of NARC Kenya is Martha Karua. We know Martha Karua. She served, of course, as an MP. She has been a cabinet minister. She has been a justice minister in the country now. She's the leader of NARC Kenya. And what is NARC Kenya? NARC Kenya is a national political party founded on the guiding democratic principles of justice, integrity, human dignity, community equity, economic empowerment, and social transformation. Founded on the 3rd of June 2006 as a result of a historic constitutional referendum held in 2005, whose outcome led to the fallout amongst leaders that formed the ruling coalition NARC. So the philosophy of NARC Kenya is one Kenya, one nation, one people, premised on the social democratic ideology. So it's a social-democratic, kind of party. And now the leader of NARC Kenya is joining us in the studio. We'll be talking to her shortly. Of course, she'll tell us about her years working in public service. She's worked in public service. She's served as a state officer. She has served as a politician. She is the leader of a political party. She has been a presidential candidate. We also know that she's taken a court out of this country's borders, a petition out of the country's borders into the East African Court of Justice. And of course, we want to know how far this case is going and why she thought that, the Supreme Court is not the end. It's taking it also further from this. Some people really... So does Martha really want that governorship so much that she has to take it all the way to Arusha? Can't you just be satisfied with one thing, right? She's in the studio, so as she settles in, that's some of the questions that we're going to be asking. So thank you very much for joining us, Martha, and karibu. Yeah, so of course, the conversation that we're going to have is going to be premised a lot on your years in public service. The first thing, of course, is we know that you've worked in the justice system for many years, and then you got into Parliament. And when you were in Parliament, the one thing that people remember is you walking out of a Moi function. Now that the former president is dying, has died, and we are looking back at the years, let's start with that. You walked out of a Moi function.
As I was entitled to.
So what is it that made you walk? What were you unhappy about on this particular day?
I walked, but you have not checked why I walked out. Yes.
Why did you walk
Yeah,
out?
that's it. We're asking why.
Kanu had this habit of disparaging the opposition. So Moi has come to Kirinyaga. And I've given him respect as head of state, therefore have gone to meet him as one of the leaders. And we go into the stadium where the Harambee was. They're giving chance to Kanu people to talk. And the Kanu local chairman starts insulting the opposition and even declaring that we are mad to think that Kenya can be led from Modhaya. That was a direct insult to me and my party.
Yeah. You were in the Democratic Party at that point.
Yes, and to my then leader of my party, retired President Kibaki. So I just quietly tell President Moi, who was just one seat away from me, between me and him was Henry Kosgei, who was then the Minister for Education. So I tell him, you've got to give me a chance to defend my party. Then he asks me what I'm going to say if he gives me a chance. And I tell him, come on, I can't tell you what I'm going to say. I can only assure you I'll give you your due respect as head of state. So he said to Taona, but the body language told me he won't. So I just surveyed the area and got ready. I couldn't walk out on the chairman talking or even the ministers. I want to walk out on the sponsor because if he's unhappy with the way they are talking, he's in charge. He could have done something about it. Because the first thing I asked him is, how can you let your people talk like this? Then he said it's not him and he wouldn't do like that. So what I did was to survey the place and I saw the entrance that I'm going to use to exit. Because you can't walk behind him. It would look like an attack. So when he rose to speak, I took the side entrance, went in front of him and gave him the DP salute and walked out. If I can't talk, I can at least stage a silent protest, which is not against the law. I'm not disturbing the meeting. I'm just exiting as I'm entitled to, and I did.
It was quite impactful because people noticed it and people remember. Among the things that people remember as one way of protesting, of leaders protesting, was that Martha Karua walking out and you became the Iron Lady from that moment on.
It had results. Because from then on, he never ignored the opposition in his gatherings. From Kirinyaga, he went to Meru. He allowed Kiraitu Murungi and the late Mweraria to address the meeting. He went to Kakamega. He allowed Wamunyinyi and others to address the meetings. From there on, that was the mark of the opposition.
So this was a catalyst? This was a catalyst for that to come through?
It did become, and I realized even a president doesn't like a walkout in an embarrassment in a public meeting. So just to keep order in his meetings, he allowed the opposition to have its place. Yeah.
And nothing negative came out of that. I mean, of allowing the leaders to speak. It didn't undermine his leadership. It didn't undermine his authority
not at
any
all.
point.
And the average person, you may differ with him, but you recognize that he's your president.
Yep.
That is the sense in which I had gone to meet him. I'm opposition, but he's the president of the country, therefore my president. So.
Yeah. Let's take a short break, take a look at traffic. In the studio on the hot seat this morning is Martha Karua, now Kenya Party leader. We're talking about her years in leadership and, of course, the party itself and what it represents and what it wants to do going forward in the future. So take a short break, take a look at traffic, and then the conversation continues. Good morning.
Spice FM, Malindi. Nothing but the best music. Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
All right, taking a look at how things are looking right now. 17 degrees in Nairobi. Mostly sunny conditions through the day. We're going to experience a high of 28. It'll be rather warm in the afternoon. In Mombasa, 27 degrees right now. Partly cloudy conditions, looking at a low of 25. In Kisumu at 19 degrees. It's going to be sunny through the day. Expect partly cloudy conditions later with highs of 32 and lows of 18. In Nyeri at 15 degrees. It's going to be sunny through the day. The clouds are going to come down though later on with highs of 27 and lows of 12. Standing strong at 28 degrees in Malindi currently. Mostly sunny conditions, partly cloudy later. We'll see what it looks like in Nakuru at 15 degrees. Sunny conditions, and we expect highs of 29 and lows of 12. And finally, rounding it out in Eldoret, 14 degrees. It's sunny conditions, partly cloudy later on with highs of 26 and lows of 11.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is Spice FM broadcasting from Nairobi, 94.4. We're in Mombasa, 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru, 96.0. We're in Eldoret on 96.7, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.7 in Malindi. We live stream the show as well on our digital platforms. Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE on Twitter and YouTube. The show is live streaming there as well as our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. In the room, this and every morning, CT Muga, Eric Latif, Nduoko. And joining us on the hot seat is Martha Karua, NARC Kenya Party leader. Of course, you were telling us about that particular incident.
Yes.
And the game changer incident when you walked out of a public meeting attended by the former president. And then, of course, now tell us after that, how was your interaction with the former president?
You know, really, there was zero interaction when we were MPs, except if there's something. I interacted with the late President Moi on several occasions as an MP. One in 1997, that's way before the walkout, when we had the IPPG, and we were invited to State House to go and report the recommendations of the committee. The other times is when we had an initiative for constitutional review in 1998, and I was one of the joint secretaries of the, what shall I call it, drafting committee, helping to draft the review process bill. So I had several interactions on that level, but interacting with him properly was when he had retired and I was a minister of government. The first year, President Kibaki invited him on one of the national days, and I sat with him at State House, and we were chatting, laughing, chatting about the water sector, about public general issues. Then thereafter, during the 2008, after the disputed elections and the chaos that attended, when we were negotiating, he was anxious to know what was going on, and I was requested to brief him on behalf of the government. So I would go to Cabinet Gardens. I went once or twice. We had tea. Then thereafter now, because I had come to get acquainted with him, I went on one or two other occasions on my own now to discuss certain issues with him. And at a personal level, he's really a very warm person, and very down to earth.
He's an ordinary mzee.
An ordinary mzee. We just were talking, very easy to talk to and to relate to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking back at his years as a president, of course, at that point you were an adult. You were seeing what was happening around the country. How would you describe it?
I think, like everybody else, he had his strong and weak points. What I remember as an opposition person is the anger that the economy had been completely run down, and that was a matter of fact when we took over.
Yeah.
About the rule of law, about democracy. In fact, I went into politics because of the oppression of the one-party state and the appetite of the one-party state to take over institutions. After taking over KOTU and Maendeleo ya Wanawake, he did pronounce in a public meeting that he would like to affiliate the Law Society. So as young lawyers, we started now pushing our then leadership, whom we thought were leaning close to the government after the chair had been appointed to a parastatal. So my activism in the Law Society spread over to activism in politics, because I realized you can't practice your profession in a vacuum. It's within the socio-economic and political context. And therefore we started agitating for wider democratic space, for adherence to the rule of law. On the other hand, when you try to look objectively, he did something in the education sector. For me, that is his strongest legacy. Starting of many schools, starting of universities, and maybe we could also talk of the expansion of the bed capacity in hospitals, Nyayo wards, because it's minus more equipment. But you could see he was focusing on the rising population. If we had waited for the right infrastructure before that expansion, then a lot of children were going to miss in education. And I realized this much later, when I was invited as a guest to one of the universities, to Eldoret campus, the campus that is off Eldoret. And as we were waiting, we were discussing with the lecturers. And when we tried a rough count, we realized that in public universities, as of 2008, together with the parallel and the regular courses, the public universities had roughly about 140,000 students.
Wow.
I remembered my days when there was only one university, University of Nairobi, with a total of 3,000 students. So I realized the leap. And it just hit me that this man's legacy is in education.
It's in education.
Yes. And I told him so when we were having tea at his Cabinet Gardens home, of, discussing politics. And he lit up,
He was excited. At least somebody noticed.
No, at least not just somebody, but I was one of his
critics.
Yes, critics that we are recognizing
that
his
you've
legacy.
done.
Because that time it sounded like there was nothing good that could come out. But truly, there was something good. But there are things, also mistakes we must learn from, avoid repeating. The tragedy is that we are repeating those mistakes knowingly, because hindsight should be able to help us. Yes.
When you say that the economy was run down when the NAC government took over,
Yeah.
what exactly had happened? What is it that we saw? Was it devoid of whatever else was happening within the larger sphere of this planet in other countries, or was it just a Kenyan problem?
Irrespective of what was happening elsewhere,
Yes.
there was mismanagement of the economy, which is happening even today, because when you allow people to help themselves from public coffers,
Help
when a
themselves.
system
A polite way of
You're
putting
being
it.
very polite.
to steal,
Yeah.
to rob ourselves, when you allow leaders to rob their country, when you misapply resources, when you do not put the priorities right, then the result is running down the economy. Today, we should be experiencing a boom even in terms of development. But when there is theft, like let's take for instance water. when money is pumped into water and it goes into people's pockets, the result is that the problems of yesterday still are there. When the resources for health are put in people's pockets, and these are just examples. When money is devolved to the counties, and then it ends up making millionaires and billionaires of leaders, instead of serving the people it's supposed to serve, that's mismanaging the economy, whether at the county level or at the national level. And I think that irrespective of what was happening worldwide, there was mismanagement of the economy. Unfortunately, we haven't learned. There's still quite a bit of mismanagement of the economy.
When did we, looking at the timeline, when did we allow this to happen? And do you think as leaders we see that leaders see when it actually happened and how it has been progressing over time, to then say perhaps to do something about it?
I think it started in the First Republic, maybe differently, because those days we didn't hear scandals of money stolen.
Right.
What we know of that era is that land meant for squatters was going to individuals, that civil servants took advantage of their being in high places to manipulate certain opportunities to go to them. Then gradually, that is what now metamorphosed. And then, of course, we know the smuggling period, where leaders were smuggling, impoverishing the farmer by smuggling coffee, impoverishing the country and mismanaging our wildlife by, illegal game trade in trophy. So you can see these things started early. They metamorphose now, not just to opportunity, but to direct theft of public funds. So it's a journey that we have made, which is not good, and we should learn.
Were you able as a leader, Martha, to speak out? To speak
Always.
out directly? And we heard in many occasions where you did. But were you able to speak out then with results and leaders being able to see?
When you ask with results, if you're speaking and you're outside of government, what results can you have?
Right.
You can have results of opening the eyes of the country. We did that in activism years and in opposition until the country agreed to change the regime. And we did in government, and I must say that the Kibaki government did very well for the economy initially. And the same old habits crept in. You remember the Anglo-leasing coming out, which means that people are now getting co-opted by the deep state once again. And I spoke out even as a member of government. And when I thought that as government we were not trying hard enough to push away, to stop the vices, I resigned because I couldn't be counted inside, those happenings. You try your best, and so long as you believe there is an effort to curb the bad practices, then one can be part of that government. But if I believe we are not making an effort, and this happened during the coalition government when I could see now, it's like we have accommodated completely. I exited so that I'm able to speak from outside without bearing responsibility of what is happening.
That's where also some people would come in and raise questions about you and say, so you had an opportunity, you served in government, you rose to a level where you are cabinet minister for justice, you are the one who's actually in charge of ensuring that we follow the rule of law, and those that have broken the law are brought to book. And then you raise your hands up and say, you know what, I can't do this. Why
the
would you give up?
challenge is when the media, you and the rest of you, are not educating the public on the role of a minister, the role of a president. That is the whole tragedy. And that's why our people will never understand or have not understood fully why a person leaves government. The person in charge of a government is the president in our setup. A minister, whatever docket you hold, you are holding it on behalf of the president. Therefore, the buck stops with him, and you cannot command another minister. In Kenya, even when there was the justice docket, the attorney general, who was then determining prosecutions, because the director of public prosecutions was not independent the way he is today.
To the AG.
It means the Attorney General decides who to prosecute and who not to prosecute.
Yes.
And he has powers to order investigations. The Minister of Justice could order investigations in matters of graft, but you cannot order prosecution.
Right.
You cannot order the police. In countries like Uganda, Ghana, the Minister of Justice was also the Attorney General. So you are not able to do anything. And if your boss is not able
not
to
applying enough
coordinate
pressure.
and to apply enough pressure, you are sort of...
You're in limbo.
Yeah, you're a lame duck.
Right.
I'm speaking on policy. I used to speak on policy against corruption, but I cannot do anything about prosecutions. You are coordinating the fight, therefore calling the various agencies to your office so that you all discuss what are the bottlenecks. And you're asking the EACC what they are doing, and there's Ringera telling you they are independent. I'm saying you're not independent from oversight. All we are asking is for you to tell us what is happening.
What's going on, right.
Very little you can do. But really, the problem was beyond that. Because if individuals who are implicated in doing some of those things are seated inside the same government you're
Cabinet that
in.
you are.
And it started showing up because during the maid scandal, we differed in a cabinet meeting. We differed over Triton. And I'm saying I can't be party to this. So I'm going to Parliament to vote against a fellow minister. So you can see the cracks were beginning to show. It was time to leave. There is no need of receiving salary from the people of Kenya as a minister if your hands are tied and you're not able to be effective. I remained insofar as I could feel that I was of help to Kenyans. If I've no help, it was at great cost to me because you lose benefits, you lose salary, you lose prestige, you lose many perks. But it's something I had to do so that I can live with myself.
We'll come back to that after you take this
Yeah.
short break, so you can
Yeah.
tell us where did that crack start emerging, and what is it that you say? Well, it's a president's government, but also there's a cabinet that sits and meets. At what point would you see that was the president hands tied, or was the president also co-opted into this? Good morning, 28 minutes to 9 o'clock.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Traffic.
So if you're stuck on Mombasa Road, you might want to stick it out there, but because using the southern bypass then connects you to Langata Road, which of course is at a standstill. So you might want to have to brave what is Mombasa Road now getting into the city. From Westlands and trying to move towards Upper Hill, of course having to use many side roads today because of the fact that Kenyatta Avenue and Valley Road have been affected with the closure of roads due to the viewing that is happening at Parliament buildings. Thika Road, trying to get into the city centre, not so bad, but we have traffic as far back as Safari Park Hotel and it's moving extremely slowly. Really, folks, everywhere you look today is quite slow. Again, an exercise in patience needs to be employed here. All right, so using the southern bypass also, please approach with caution because there's an accident involving 4 vehicles already this morning, so you might not want to use that as an option. Reach us on Spice FM KE, let us know what you see. Let's try to keep folks moving as much as we can this morning.
96.1 Spice FM, Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So now Kenya Party leader Martha Karua is on the hot seat in the Situation Room this morning. And just before we move on the conversation, let's stick to that point where you said you resigned because you felt that you were not being effective.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there in cabinet, you're discussing things in cabinet. The owner of the government, so to speak, the president is chairing the cabinet meetings. You're raising these issues and action is not being taken. Why would you say that? Would you think the president was not taking action?
Let me first say that the things that started going wrong, especially for the coalition government, was during appointments. And I raised the issue that you cannot appoint people without integrity. But remember, half the names were coming from one side, half from the other. So other minders of the president said that an exception has to be made. So I'm already unhappy with certain appointments.
Characters.
Because you cannot knowingly appoint people who have baggage, you see. And then these things start coming up, and there is seemingly no will to put things right. Because remember that cabinet was a different cabinet with a president, with a prime minister, with both sides. And you'll be very surprised that after the grandstanding when we were forming the government, in cabinet, it was surprising that people started coalescing around interests. So you cannot say it is this side and it's not this side.
Right.
You became
Because
one.
no, many. Because I remember during the maize scandal, the late Mzee William Temama was firmly on the side of the people. Obviously, there were others who were quiet, so you will not, and are not saying anything, so you will not know on which side. Some may be on the side of the people, but are afraid to clash with colleagues.
Yeah.
So in cabinet, you don't go to discuss all the topics. As a minister, you report to the president, and if it was something coming under the prime minister, there were things he was coordinating, but basically you report to the president and brief him what is going on. So he's the final answer to most of the issues. If it is another ministry that is giving the whole thing a problem, it's him who can find out and direct that minister, because you have no power to direct a fellow minister. So I felt that wasn't working. We had lost that, and there wasn't will within government to act. And I just said,
If someone said, Mheshimiwa, that you are an idealist, and then asked the question, how likely is idealism, is idealism likely to survive in a political environment? What would you say?
Yes, it is. And I remember the first Kibaki years before these issues came. You saw the nation wake up. Some of the effects on the economy are good signs are from those days. It is possible, and it is not possible that there will be without mistakes. But there has to be a will to whip people back to ethical ways of doing things and to punish those who are caught. You know, even in a club, not a country, if you don't follow the rules, there will be no club.
Right.
People are glued together by common ideals and by rules that punish those who veer off, those that whip people back to the common objective. So in a country, not following the rule of law is allowing indiscipline and chaos.
But in your idealism, do you also have room for compromise? So you understand, for example, C.T. Muga's, his stand is on a matter is this, and this is where you stand. But then you see, let me give some room or some space. Let me cede some ground.
That's how come I became a minister in the second term, even knowing that unsuitable people had populated there. You see, but you first give it a chance, but it's not working. You leave. I think what we must agree as a nation, let's not give ourselves the lowest standards possible. Let's strive to the highest.
To highest standard.
You may never attain the highest. The second generation will come also striving for the highest. But this accepting the worst possible standard, we're actually doing ourselves in, then we also have no right to complain when services are bad, when we suffer, because then we are the authors of our own misfortune. You know, as individuals, we always strive for the best. You want the best for your family. Therefore, the little money or much money you have, you will bargain very hard whenever you are doing purchases. Whenever you are investing, whether in a school or in whatever, you will try to get the best. We are not asked to do more for a country, just to try to get the best deal you can all the time in the job you're doing, whether it is in thinking, whether it is in acting, act in the best interest. That's all that we are asking.
It makes sense to us as we hear it now, Martha, but how come then some leaders just don't seem to get the memo? I'm sorry, but
they don't get it because the populace don't get it too. Because you're going to complain about somebody and then you will elect, if not the same person, a replica or a worse person. So we lose that right to complain. I have heard people talking in the streets And in social places, oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period. If there's a better thief, allow the village thief in your village. And if you live in town, in your neighborhood, to take away just something small from you. That chicken that may be
To
in your
steal from
compound,
you.
that came from, if you have not rearing chicken, it could have come with a friend from up country. Allow them to steal it, cook it, and after they've eaten the meat, to make
with the
soup
bone.
for you
With the
with the
bone.
lower legs, not the knee.
The thigh bone.
You know,
With the claws.
with the claws which have nothing at all. They'll make soup for you with that. Then you can say, oh, what a nice thief, what a generous
At least he
thief.
gave me something.
He gave me something. Like you couldn't cook your own chicken. Our people fail to connect that public funds are like that chicken because you've contributed to those public funds. Even when you're not working, anything you buy, from that unga for ugali to that matatu you bought, you're a taxpayer because all those things have been taxed. That mutumba you are wearing, taxes have been paid for it. So when you buy it, you're paying taxes. That baby on your back, their diaper, their milk, it's taxed. This is our collective money. Whoever steals it means you'll not get health services. You or your loved one will die of a disease that could have been curable. Your child will not get education. You'll not get roads. We never connect theft of public funds with our own suffering.
life.
And I'm saying because this is our country and nobody else will come and clear this mess, it's you and me. As people in a position of influence, because media has a lot of influence, together with other people of goodwill, why don't we make it our business to tell people daily, to break it down? These days, people think $1 billion is $1 million. The only way people can understand the difference is by being able to know that $1 billion can transform the health facilities of any county, including Nairobi. That $1 billion can transform your schools, the infrastructure of your schools. That $1 billion could probably pay, in an average county, the school fees of all the students for that year, so that they can understand the magnitude of the money stolen from them. They can be angry and they can react appropriately on voting day. The way they reacted in 2002, pretty much majority of Kenyans were fed up with the Kanwera and they voted collectively to remove it. We're not asking for an uprising. We are asking for a revolution
In the mind.
Of the
of
mind.
the mind leading to a revolution of the ballot. In a county, even if you elect a very good governor and terrible MCAs, nothing will work.
Nothing will work.
You see, you saw how Kibwana's first term was taken by his sacrifice of saying, let us all go home. He did a great service to devolution. So we need people thinking and electing from the MCAs upwards, good leadership that can take them somewhere. And when we talk good leadership, I want to remind Kenyans that this particular season, since the elections of 2017, leaders have just been talking about 2022, like they were elected to campaign for 2022. It's only recently, when there was a clash, that they have now started talking about the economy. 2.5 years later, halftime,
Right.
is when they have talked, and not
Not
permanently.
yeah.
Only once when castigating
throw
one
jabs.
side of the government, to throw jabs at each other. Thereafter, it's all about BBI. Yeah.
Talking
Well,
about
since
BBI.
we talked about it, maybe then we can ask you,
Yes.
your views. We'd like to know. I mean, generally, and then we can go into details on the face of it. What do you think about the BBI?
On the face of it, and I told them when we went to present, because I led NAC Kenya to present to BBI, they were not properly constituted. They are not inclusive as is required by the Constitution, because they represent just two sides, ODM and Jubilee. And the Constitution, Article 10, talks of inclusiveness. They ought to have sought representation from civil society, from political parties outside Parliament, and don't ask me how they could accommodate all the parties. There is Center for Multi-Party Development, which brings all parties together. So even if you just want one or two from those out parliaments, it's possible. Even the churches, you can't bring all of them, but there's a way we do it.
There's an umbrella you can.
So it should have been inclusive. That I told them. Number two, the recommendations they made.
But before you move on, talking about that inclusivity, so we've got some church leaders there as well. We've got some women
Appointed
leaders.
by who? Because the process is very important.
So the inclusivity comes from the who select Bishop Lawi Matthew.
It's allowing sectors to feel that they have a stake at what is going on. Because if it's the two groupings only, you are locking out the rest of the country.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it is the same grouping that has been again gazetted. Number two, I have no quarrel with most of their recommendations. And most of their recommendations do not need constitutional review at all.
It could be happening now.
Yes, and those that they say need constitutional review are actually already provided in the constitution, including inclusivity, including gender balance. All of them are represented, including how to deal with each other. I do not agree that we should amend the constitution to accommodate runner-ups in elections. If we do that, and if we are genuine, let's then have something that accommodates the runner-up for MCA. You come up to MP, you come up to senator,
To
women
governor.
rep, to governor, then you can say, then to president, then you can say you are accommodating everybody. It doesn't make sense. What we really need is electoral justice. You see? If we find a way how we can enforce our electoral laws, how we can make our elections clean, that is the whole problem. Yeah.
Let's talk about
whatever.
what that is then. What is it that we need to do to ensure that we have electoral justice so that it saves us from having a prime minister and two deputy prime ministers and I don't know how many deputy presidents, so we can have an inclusive face of Kenya at the top.
Or having disputed elections.
Now,
this is
just
where
a short break and then we come back and continue on that. 13 minutes to 9 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. Martha Karua, the Now Kenya party leader, is in the studio. We're talking about BBI now. Of course, we also want to hear what you have to say. You can post this on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook, at Spice FM KE on Twitter. Good morning.
Spice FM. Nyeri. Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Elections, Martha. We've done it before. We've done it so many times. We've attempted it many times. You were there in the IPPG. That was one way of just a small way of trying to ensure that the next general election was done better. Came up with a constitution review, talks about IEBC. Now we're still talking about elections. So many years down the road. What is it that we need to do?
Good things have happened from all those efforts. After IPPG, which opened campaign for opposition because then we no longer needed licenses to hold a rally, we were eventually able to remove KANU in 2002 because we also could be heard on the airwaves and we could traverse the country. So reforms are not for nothing. They may not be at the pace we want, but it's good. The constitution we have has not solved all our problems, although it has a capacity to, because we are resistant to change. It has been poorly implemented, and I actually say we may not need to open up the constitution. What we need to do is to obey it faithfully. Coming to elections, what do we need to do? Our problem is not the electoral law. Our problem is not the constitution. Our problem is our behavior as Kenyans. The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other. You see? Then those who are given the responsibility of manning or being the workforce in the elections, the clerks, the presiding officers, the returning officers, a great number of them are only too willing to be co-opted for something small. You see? So whoever you bring is going to be contaminated by us. The political class.
Us voters. Okay.
No, also the voters, because you are the ones who are sent. No leader will go to the polling station to mess.
Right, yeah.
He will send you as as
This
a
particular
agents.
agenda,
So
as it
it's
were,
parties
right? Yeah.
and their supporters.
Okay.
So for me, I've been looking at what happens around the world. And one of the things we recommended, and it happened to be in the recommendations of BBI, I don't know who else, maybe other people also recommended the same, is that election officials in this country should only be engaged once in a lifetime. It's like the jury. You work for the Electoral Commission, next election, you are not there.
You're not there.
So that you stop using it for rent seeking, or people stop focusing on you and hunting you down. Number two, I've seen in other democracies, notably Denmark, what they do, they are equivalent of the counties. Every county, let me call it county for the sake of whatever, every county handles its own elections. And our election rules allow that, because the IBC is supposed to call the parties, tell them these are the people we are proposing to engage. Do you have an objection? They never tell us. They never fulfill that particular part of the law. So you will later have to realize, like I realized, that your opponents have been given a free hand to practically choosing everyone.
Everyone.
It's like choosing your
So the
referee.
electoral officials basically work for your opponent.
So what I would say, let every county handle its election. What does that do to us? It means that the IEBC is not beholden to any one person, because there will be a committee that is supervising what is going on. If they hire somebody in my ward, all the interested parties will be able to say, this is a person we know has integrity. There's a person who will be mentioned and will be rejected immediately in that ward. So, and also you solve the disputes yourself. In Denmark, they don't have those petitions like us, because any dispute is solved by that group. What it means is that the Electoral Commission is supervising to ensure that you follow the law, but it means you are checking on each other, because we have a deficit of trust in this country.
I'm not understanding this.
Let me just finish this.
Yeah.
We have a deficit of trust, because we know each other and we know we all behave badly.
Yes.
You suspect me, I suspect you. We are basically, people are trying to steal each other. What it means is that if we are in a committee, we are asking ourselves, how do we best hold each other to account? And then you agree these are what we will do on that day. And it means those who are checking is a group from all the parties, isn't it? If there are three people not agreeing, so they are the ones supervising what is going on, it becomes very difficult for you to co-opt. I can't say I've thought every aspect of it through and through. But these are some of the proposals we can discuss round table and see how best to checkmate each other, because we are the problem, not the law. You can amend the law as many times as you wish. Nothing will change
But so long
until
as
we
you have
change
people.
our political culture. And then number two, accountability. Make sure that anybody who commits an election offense is taken to court. I have complained to the DPP and to the DCI. You remember my exhibits were stolen in Kirgoya court? When they are under custody of the court.
Right.
They have not shown any interest in investigating that.
Yeah.
We may have to look for whoever is interested to do a private prosecution. I have complaints about two returning officers and an election of a presiding officer. I have a complaint against a party operative. If such people are taken to court, irrespective of the outcome, it will send signals that at the end of the day, you account as an individual, not as a group. So what we lack, and it's not just for elections, it's also for cases of theft, of murder, of leaders behaving badly.
We've often said,
holding leaders to account. Period.
We've often said that if one case were to be prosecuted end to end, we probably see then the slow death of all of these other things. Do you agree?
I agree totally. You can see the shockwaves it sends until governors have to come together to start saying, give us immunity. Immunity from theft, immunity from murder. What immunity are you asking for, guys? That's what we are asking.
That's what they want.
Yeah.
What kind of a government, prescribe, if you could be prescriptive, what is it then that we need in order for us to move forward? We seem to be going round and round.
We need a government that will respect the rule of law in every aspect of the world, where the law applies equally to everybody without fear or favor, where cases are investigated, prosecuted, and I want to hail our prosecutorial agencies because it's good to say for once we have seen something that is exciting us. I want also to hail the DCI. They may not be doing everything we want, but I want to say we've seen
There's something they're doing.
reinvigoration of those two. The judiciary, there is some good and some bad. They'll have to pull up their socks. You cannot convince me that the Joey case, the Obado case, the NYS one, NYS 2 should still be in court even as we handle new graft cases.
Who's to
It
blame
is
for that? Is it the
being
judiciary to blame
unable-
for that, or is it?
The judiciary presides over cases. So a presiding officer is in charge of that court, not an advocate. You can apply for adjournment until you get hoarse, but it's the court that grants or don't grant.
Okay.
There is no need for a court starting 10, 20 new cases in a month and never finishing any
The other
for the
ones.
next 2 years. Come on. The judiciary is showing bad management of cases, with the exception of a few who conclude their matters.
Yeah.
There is something very wrong
Of what
in the way
advantage?
the cases are being treated, the management.
Of what advantage? I mean,
Yeah.
to make it very clear here, of what
Yeah.
advantage would it be then to hold on to these cases over time?
I think there's an advantage because you see, when you are on the receiving end, if it's your case you have taken to court, nobody can tell you that you should give up. It has stayed
for too long.
Let us not ask that question. Let us ask, what is it that we can do to make the judiciary manage itself better? That question is over to the CJ and his team. There is no need of being defensive. Just go check your returns, check your files, and see why we are having so many old cases until murder and theft are becoming almost
more.
fashionable.
No more.
Weshima, there's been this debate, and it's
Yeah.
a constant one,
Yeah.
where the executive blames the judiciary and the judiciary blames the executive.
None of them is perfect, but the judiciary has more power in management of cases, period. I've been a judicial officer, so I'm talking what I know, not just a minister of justice,
Yes,
not just
you
a
have-
lawyer,
you've been
but
there.
I've been a judicial officer for 6 years.
Those that argue
Yeah.
that you don't want to go against people's civil liberties. If somebody is asking for an adjournment because the prosecution has not provided them with enough information or enough documentation, what do we do?
You see, there is case management or case scheduling. When a new case comes up, there is a time when all parties go before the court for the court to assess the preparedness.
Yeah.
That's when you raise your questions. And that's when the presiding judge or magistrate can tell you, I will not be taking any adjournment. So if there's anything you want to raise it now. You see? And should it be raised later, you can reject it. And if you must allow it, you give the shortest time possible. How is it that the same adjournments go on for a year, for 2,
Indefinitely, yes.
for 3?
Yeah.
This is wrong management, and I want to say very emphatically. And it doesn't require money. This is not about we were given less money.
It's not about the resources.
Yeah, jipangeni. Let them be serious managers, even if it means having a course for judicial officers on management.
Should
Let
we
it
read
be
out
so.
judges again? Ringera came, wiped out some judges. We had the Sharad Rao team, wiped out some judges. Now we are still having problems. Should we do another round?
I think that the Constitution and the law allows for self-cleansing. And I do not know why the judiciary does not have a peer review mechanism where you can have a few lawyers, judges who review the judgments, not interfere with you when you're doing your case, review the length of time taken. There is a more loose group with the LSK, but I still think it needs reinvigoration. And now that I'm active again in practice, I'm also going to try and see how I can contribute to it. We need to be able to call out very good judgments so that those people can
Can be
be
recognized.
congratulated and
Yeah.
even promoted. We also should be able to call out judgments that demonstrate either incompetence, corruption, or both. Because there are things you do until you leave everybody with their mouths open. We should be able, we must checkmate each other, just
other.
like in elections. We are a country that have decided the elite, those who are educated professionals, not just judges, we have decided to behave badly.
Yeah.
So whether it's the accountants, whether it's the lawyers, whether it's who, look at who is covering for the other when funds are stolen. It's professionals covering for each other. We need to checkmate each other. That's all that I would say.
Thank you very much. So we have in the studio Martha Karua. Let's take a short break and look at traffic, and then we come and talk about Kenya for about 15 minutes, right?
Okay.
4.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Traffic.
All right, still some problems on Mombasa Road as we see it. Thika Road as well, providing quite a high level of traffic this morning. University Way, of course, you can count less than a few vehicles on the road. This is because roads leading beyond that have been closed, and we can't get further than that. And it's going to be that way for through the day, guys. All right, Jogo Road, trying to get into the city using the city stadium roundabout, and then going further from there. Of course, there's traffic everywhere you look today. I don't think it's going to be a different story, no matter the part of the city that you look at. Also, be prepared outbound Nairobi tomorrow, coming into different parts of the city, and then outbound Wednesday will be that way as well. But we'll give you more details as the time approaches. Spice FM KE is how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see, and at least we'll try and make the wait worth it.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your
On
day.
the hot seat is the Honorable Martha Karua. She is the party leader of Kenya. Martha, it's 1 hour is too short to have you in the studio. Of course, we want you to keep coming more often. Let's talk about Kenya now for a bit, right?
Yeah.
So, one, you campaigned for presidency.
And I will again.
And you, that's the question.
I haven't said when.
Eric was very
But
excited
that's
already.
unfinished business. Yes.
Good. That's very good.
Yeah.
So, and then you went to Kirinyaga. You wanted to be governor.
And I won.
And you won.
Yes.
So you're taking this case out of Kenya's Supreme Court beyond our borders. Explain
Eric,
to us.
before we go there, why do you emphatically state that you won?
Because it's a fact. And let's not bother going there. Let's go why I'm taking the case out.
Okay.
But I emphatically say I won without batting an eyelid.
All right. Let's
Yeah.
bat an eyelid with
And
the
my
South African
opponent
court.
knows I won.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Why?
Now-
Why outside Kenya?
Now, I think you've got to understand the court and what I'm doing there. As far as governorship is concerned, the Kenya court concluded. But it concluded without going to the facts. They used an excuse. Oh, this is an innocent litigant. Through no fault of her own, she is now time barred. You know?
Right.
They just looked for an excuse, which the Constitution forbids them from doing in Article 159. So whom have I taken to court in Arusha? The government of Kenya, because of the behavior of its judicial arm, dispensing injustice to me instead of justice. And the Treaty of the East African Community enjoins member states to uphold the rule of law and democracy.
I like this.
So what we are taking to the community is look at your member,
States.
Look at what they're
at your
doing.
member state, who doesn't follow the rule of law, who is not faithful to the articles of East African cooperation. Look at them. So that Kenya doesn't pose out there in East Africa or in the East African beyond, in Africa or anywhere else, that they are a state that believes in the rule of law. If they do, then they've got to go back and see why it's not happening. The current constitution says that justice cannot be sacrificed at the altar of technicality. When you say someone is time barred, That's a technicality.
As a reason as to why then they would not go
So just
forward,
take us
right?
back to
Because
this,
if they had
for
gone-
those that may not have that
Yeah.
background,
Yeah.
what is it that the Supreme Court said?
My case was filed on time. But they say somewhere along the corridors of justice, the case became time barred. It's a laughable as you're laughing.
Right.
So it's like telling me, madam, sorry. We are so sorry.
Umechelewa.
We are going to
Tumefunga.
dispense injustice to you through no fault of your own.
But injustice all the same.
It is
empathize
such
with you.
a ridiculous position from a court of law that should dispense justice, knowingly telling you, we will serve you in justice through no fault of your own, and we are sorry. You see?
If the Kenyan government is found culpable,
Yeah.
what is likely to happen?
A pronouncement.
Beyond the
It's more
pronouncement?
like a declaratory. I said issues about governorship ended in Nairobi.
Yeah.
Now it is the state and the rule of law. It loses face already by the case being there. We are questioning Kenya, which poses us holier than thou, isn't it?
Yes, and opens
So-
up the Constitution. I mean, this is in the Constitution, so this is one way of actually also...
Actually, where I'm going with my question is, but this particular court cannot overturn the ruling that was made by our courts, can
But
it?
we are not seeking that it be overturned.
That's not what you're
That is-
seeking.
you have to understand what it is we are seeking. A declaration that Kenya is not following the articles, in that it's not following the rule of law.
Yeah.
And then they could also be asked to compensate. But the thing is, states have a way even you as an individual have a way you project yourself.
Yeah.
There are certain details you'd rather we didn't know.
Of course.
Those are the details. That's
you're
the laundry.
exposing.
That's the laundry.
You're
That's not
airing that.
airing.
That's the laundry that is taken to dry.
One of the things that seems to be glaring is
Nairobi.
that you talk about following the rule of law.
Yes.
One of the things that seems to be glaring is that following the tenets of the Constitution.
Yes.
Isn't that something? It seems to be then that something then that is practiced across board. If we want to look at coming back to Kenya now,
Yeah.
it looks at something that is really then practiced in terms of not following what the Constitution says. Are we even aware?
The thing is, this case, by taking it there, one, now in Spice FM and in the listenership countrywide, they're going to know today about East Africa Court of Justice, and they're going to know that we are trying to push the bar up higher on following the Constitution. So filing a case also serves as awareness creation.
Yep.
How many people knew that you could take the government of Kenya to Arusha?
To Arusha.
And you don't have to go to Arusha to file. I filed at the Milimani commercial courts. That's where the Arusha court have a small cubicle. But when the case is being heard, we have to go to Arusha.
to Arusha.
The case was in Arusha on the 30th of last month.
Okay.
And we'll be given a scheduling date soon so that the hearing can proceed.
can proceed.
I had to debate whether to go to the East Africa Court of Justice or to go to the African Court. And I said, let me start because
Step by step.
with the East African Court. Yeah.
There's something. I hear you say that you're still going to run for president. Of course, the details of when we'll know about
If you
later.
look at me, I'm politically very young.
I can see that.
So once you see that,
We know
then
that
you
there's
know that there's tomorrow, there's the day after,
So then-
God willing.
So then
Yes.
with that, I hear you saying that there's some hope, because I don't see you, from what you've said in the last 45 minutes,
Yeah.
I don't see you then being part of a government with all these stains and taints that you've talked about.
No, what I'm
so you
saying-
see that there's hope for you then to want to be at the helm.
Let me say this, that I'm willing to serve Kenyans in any capacity, and I'm qualified for all the 6 seats from MCA to president. And therefore, the decision on which seat to go on, as a person who is willing, ready and able to serve Kenyans, will be made closer to the elections. I don't feel compelled to declare candidature for any position at the moment. Elections are way far away. Just because a few people have declared and are going
That are
around,
going around.
I'm not going to be pressured.
As
But
leader of a political
yes.
party, let's talk about your party and what
Yeah.
is your party thinking for the next election. Of course, a party lives for the next election until it gets to a position of leadership.
NAC Kenya is getting ready. NAC Kenya is on a recruitment drive, and later NAC Kenya will hold countrywide party elections. NAC Kenya is preparing for a comeback like no other in
What
the
does your
2022 season.
What does your constitution say in terms of leadership and elections? When should you have elections?
Every 5 years.
When was the last election?
Last year.
Last year in
No,
2019?
last 2 years,
2018.
2016 actually.
2016.
Yeah.
So you're due for election
We are
next
due
year.
for elections, yeah. And we are hoping that we can be able to renew leadership across the board.
Okay, you've had a label as Iron Lady over time, and we don't know exactly at what point this label came onto. One, what do you feel about that? And then two, do you feel that it was necessary to wear that?
You
to
can't
be able to
stop
move through?
people from laboring you because it's not within your control.
Of course.
It doesn't change who I am. Whatever name you call me, I remain who I am. So for me, is whatever opportunity I have to serve, to use it to the best of my ability. And whatever little opportunity I have, whether in elected service or in different space, to use it to improve that position that is entrusted to me. Yeah, so the label doesn't matter.
If you are offered a position in this current government, would you
I
take
was
it?
offered, and I said no.
Okay.
What
I
position were you
was offered the position of a CS. We didn't get into the discussion, although there was a hint which area, and I'm not going to go into that. Very early on, when the president's petition was still going on, we met and he offered. Remember in Kirinyaga, he said, whoever doesn't win, he will offer.
Yes.
And I told him, I'm not interested. I told him, your people stole from me and I'm going to court. You see? And I wasn't interested in being appointed. You see? I can support the government without being in government. And it's not necessary that everybody in Kenya be part of government. In fact, a majority
ought to be out?
Not ought, are out of
Already
government.
out of government.
So I am content to be with the majority until my time comes. Yeah.
From your experience in 2013
Yeah.
and also looking back at Charity Ngilu's campaign in 97,
Yeah.
is Kenya ready for a female president?
May I ask when Kenya met to agree that they want incompetent male presidents? You see? Because what I'm
When did
saying...
that conference take place, right?
When you ask whether
During
Kenya
the
is ready, whether Kenya is ready for a female president, you are insinuating that they better have an incompetent male rather than a female. The fact that we have been elected as female leaders, and for me, 20 years on, consecutively.
Over and over again.
Yes, shows that Kenyans will not choose. But the media must help us. I was decampaigned by the media throughout my campaign.
Which one? Presidential?
Generally, almost all the media, the presidential. This question of posing all the time whether Kenyans are ready is sowing a seed that there's something not okay with a female presidency. And many, many other things. And the word in the media and in many circles was, she's okay, probably she's even the best, but she can't get elected, you'll be wasting your vote. That is actively decampaigning. So first of all, can the media join female candidates by allowing them equal space with the rest and not making any insinuation that decampaigns them? Remembering that you are all sons of women, you all have sisters and daughters, and every father is very proud of their daughter. My father is not a gender activist, so to say, but he believes in me as his daughter. And the average parent will believe in their daughter, their son. So let's give each other equality of opportunity. Probably. It is a woman who will make this country move to the next level.
Mheshimiwa, if I were to look at history,
Yeah.
women have always had an uphill task, not just in politics, but in gaining any recognition, even in professional employment.
Yeah.
Politics can't be better because for the longest time it has been male-dominated. What is it that women should do? Not what the media you've challenged and they should take up that challenge, but what should women do to place themselves on that equal footing?
Women have done what they can. They should never cease vying for opportunities that they want. But women and men of goodwill who recognize that even a home cannot be whole and society cannot be whole without the inclusion of both men and women, must voluntarily become feminists. And a feminist is a person who believes in gender equality.
Yeah.
Feminism is not female. That's why Obama and the Pope can call themselves feminists. So what we are calling upon is men and women of goodwill to become feminists, to open the doors. When you open the door, you're opening for your daughter, for your sister, for your mother. Probably not for me. I'm already there and I know how to go my way into the whatever. But we must make our children, my grandchildren, to have a better time than we have. And we've already started as a country in small ways. I do not know of any family in Kenya today which doesn't take both boys and girls to school.
Yeah.
Let us move
Yes.
and do better in all the areas.
Where would you say that your greatest support is in the country?
Sorry?
NAC Kenya.
Yeah.
Its greatest support base, where would you say it is in the country? There's a follow-up
this-
question to it because I was
Yes,
going to ask.
I will. I'm going to answer you and tell you this. We have support in quite a number of places, but it's not possible to say with a tally of who is elected in an election where in Mount Kenya we were deliberately rigged out to the extent that even with the IEBC's claim that I got 122,000 votes to Igoro's 167, I do not have a single MCA. It's just not possible. That math doesn't work.
add up.
So we were literally obliterated, but we have presence in Meru, we have presence in Tharaka Nithi, we have presence in Embu, we have presence in Mandera, we have presence in Garissa, in Wajir, we have presence in Nyamira, we have presence in Kisii. If I may pause there, NAC Kenya is a party with a national appeal. Yeah.
Bottom line. As your final closing comments, so that we can conclude this morning's interview, Martha,
Yeah.
what would you like to tell the people of Kenya?
I would like to tell them that our well-being as a country is in our hands. Let us really think how we utilize our power to vote. That is a key to better living. Let us elect people of integrity. Let us not follow money. Whether you take the money or not, that is your decision.
Yeah.
But don't vote with your stomach. Vote with your mind. We have done it before. That's how we removed KANU in 2002. We can do it again. We must do it again in 2022. And I would say I would not encourage you on any of the two groupings, whether Kieleweke or Tanga. What they have shown us is that they are thinking only of themselves, not the country, because they are concentrated in the current parliament. Things are not working for us. They are concentrated in leadership. Things are not working for us. Let us start to think differently.
Outside the current crop of leaders.
And the parties will not matter. Not how big the party is. Cast your vote where you should cast it. Look at Makueni. Kibwana did not come from a majority party. Look at what he has done for his county. I am saying your vote matters. You can unlock your own potential and the potential of your county. And the next revolution in Kenya will come from the counties, a ward at a time. And then it will go national.
Thank you very much, Martha Karua, for joining us this morning. We'll invite you again so we can come and talk about the electoral system. Let's talk about our Kenyan voters, because you've talked about how the Kenyan voter makes a mistake deliberately at the point of choosing a leader. We'll have to have a conversation about that in future.
That's okay, so long as you have a conversation with the traffic commander about Mombasa Road.
About Mombasa,
But I've enjoyed this session. Thank you so much.
Asante. Have a good one, Martha Karua. It's 19 minutes after 9 o'clock. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Take a look at weather and then the conversation continues. Good morning.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. The weather with Spice FM.
All right, we're currently at 19 degrees in Nairobi. Partly cloudy conditions prevail through the day with highs of 28 and lows of 14. In Nyeri this morning, we're at 20 degrees, a sunny day today, taking us through the day at 27 degrees the high. In Nakuru at 18 degrees, also sunny conditions with a high of 29 and a low of 12. In Eldoret at 16 degrees, it's mostly sunny today. We're going to see that through the day with highs of 26 and lows of 11. In Mombasa at 29 degrees, partly cloudy conditions with a high of 32 and a low of 25. And finally in Malindi at 29 degrees, it's going to be a warm sunny day with highs of 32 and lows of 26.
Chilled Spice.
How are you?
Breathing life into the 80s. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Well, the Iron Lady was here. The Iron Lady has left. The Situation Room, the conversation continues. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Of course, we are in Nairobi, we're in Mombasa, we're in Eldoret, we're in Nakuru, we're in Malindi, we're in Nyeri, Eldoret, Nakuru, Kisumu as well. www.spicefm.co.ke. In the Situation Room, CT Muga, Eric Latif, and Nduoko. Lest we forget, CT.
Lest we forget that the locals have made Kenya their country of choice. Lest we forget that the locals have overtaken tourists and their visitation to this country as the fastest and the quickest moving visitors to this country. Lest we forget that the floods are not over. Lest we forget that this problem that we've had with the schools, to date, the Ministry of Education have not given us even the slightest indication of how it is they plan to resolve it, as each new day brings with it the prospects of a new problem. Lest we forget that even before the coronavirus, there was the HIV virus. And this problem, much as it has been reduced in terms of its prevalence, it's still a problem that we need to face. Lest we forget that with the flooding, with the locust, we have imminent danger of famine facing us. All these things boil down to one simple thing: the role that the government plays in ensuring that the safety of its citizenry is not only looked after, it's planned for, and that it is something that the citizenry can take for granted. The nation cannot keep going around in circles talking about the things that could have been done, should have been done, ought to have been done, might have been done. And yet there are people who are tasked with ensuring that these things are done, and who on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, are paid to do these things. If one were to say that this particular government has failed its people, would one be accusing the government wrongly? If one were to say that this government seems to be working against the interest of its people, would one be judging this government too harshly? My position is this: if the government has failed, you as a citizenry, you've heard us say this before, what can you do? What should you do? What must you do? Because blaming, complaining will not solve the problem. But you as the citizenry can decide to make a decision that will ensure that these changes come about in a way that suits your purposes best.
So you want me to go and buy the insecticides to come and spray on the locusts? What is it that you want? So look,
ask the question, then I'm going to answer you very precisely, concisely to the point.
As a citizen, resident of Kitui, or resident of Isiolo, resident of Wajir, Garissa, Mandera, all those counties that have been visited by the locusts, I've done the best I could.
No, you haven't. What you haven't done is put enough pressure on your governor, on your MCA, on your senator,
what is enough
and
pressure?
other people. Enough pressure is, apart from just picketing, all right? Even holding sit-ins so that, for instance, this person cannot get to office, meaning getting their attention. Remember, these people go about their business every day without hindrance. So all they do is hear the talk, but they don't feel the pressure. How does one feel the pressure? You make sure that you put into place certain elements of civil disobedience within the county system, so these people understand that it's not going to be business as usual. This is what I'm talking about.
We are back to your pet topic again, civil disobedience.
We are not
This
only
is the
back.
thing. Everything about you, CT, is the government is not working, so civil disobedience.
Actually, civil
Falling
disobedience.
short of telling us to actually overthrow the government.
Civil disobedience doesn't overthrow the government. All it does is it tells the government that it isn't business as usual. That's what it does. And civil disobedience doesn't mean you break the law. No. Civility means we go about our business every day and don't disrupt anything. If we picket, and a whole lot of us picket, and we're in the middle of the road and we're not moving, that is civil disobedience. You will have to pay attention and ask why we are in the middle of the road and why we are picketing. You have to ask. And we will tell you. And we will tell you we will stop doing this when you take action that, because it's not the citizen who should take action of making sure there's DDT or there's grounds. That's not their job.
No, it's not their job.
But what they can do is make sure that this problem is highlighted, that make sure that there's pressure is brought to bear on the people whose task it is to ensure that this thing is done. That they can do.
But the government is doing something.
Are they?
Something, yes, it is doing something.
And this something is what
we know,
exactly?
for example, the Minister of Agriculture, in terms of when it comes to the issue of locusts, the Ministry of Agriculture is there. Minister Munya has been on the ground. Minister Munya has taken, government has set aside money and a budget for it, and it's saying this is what we are doing about the locusts. Yes,
Of course they are.
the locusts are still coming from, we've looked at it in the papers today, from Pakistan, through Yemen, all the way from Somalia. What do you want us to do? There's nothing more we can do more than what we are doing.
No. Eric,
cannot
there's
stop
something
them.
very
So even
fundamental.
if you picket CT,
Eric,
In terms of
there's
options-
something very, very fundamental. Munya just got into that ministry the other day. Prior to that, even if Munya wasn't there, they are Munya is a presidential appointee. You're talking about career civil servants who are in that ministry because of their expertise. We know very well that the ground spring that should have taken place didn't quite take place. This is politely speaking. We know very well that even at the very onset, before this whole horde of marauding invaders came in, we knew that they were coming. It's not that we didn't know. It isn't the only problem we have. We're focusing on it, but it isn't. But the manner in which the government deals with these things follows a pattern.
Right.
It's a clear pattern. And it's a clear pattern which for them is like, it's business as usual. This is what they do. Move from the ferry, move to the flood, move to
Kakamega.
Schools. Just take your pick. Take your pick.
I think one thing that is clear, though, however, is that as a result of this, I think we've put people in a state of then, being quiet about all of this because we kind of know what's going to happen. But in terms of then what we can do, that's why I think conversations play a huge role in this, and being very overt and being very vocal about what you know should be happening and isn't happening, and then you find a way to then bring people to book. I think it is absolutely necessary, armed with the information that we have, yes, to be very vocal about this and say, look, we know for a fact that this 2, 3 should be happening, and it is not happening. We keep quiet. You only give those in a position to actually do something about it more fodder to sit and just graze and not do anything about it that they wouldn't ordinarily.
Eric,
I think that's the danger that silence plays. That's the danger that when we're quiet about it, expecting that the status quo is going to be maintained, the danger we put ourselves into is now actually maintaining that status quo.
Eric, lest we forget also that our roads keep getting worse with the rains.
Yes.
But what this points to is that some of those roads were probably not built to the standards that they claim they were built to.
Initially.
Because they're supposed to withstand. You can't build a road today and 2 days later you find that they're
Washed
gaping
off,
holes.
but,
Yes.
yeah.
You get the impression that they didn't even put down, they just painted it black. Okay?
It was paint.
It was paint. So it rains, it's washed away, and the next thing you know, you're dealing with mud. So they painted on the mud.
Well, you can't put it past Kenyans. I mean, Nairobi City Council
anything
bought
can
chalk.
happen.
Chalk. The guy whose name you're looking for the other day,
Yes.
Kogo.
Yes.
Remember him?
Yes.
Yes. There was claim that this particular gentleman, a Kanu operative, instead of supplying chlorine, which was supposed to use the water, he applied chalk.
Hi.
It was claimed.
White chalk.
White chalk.
He ensured we're not picking at city. Mwalimu city is black and blue.
No. Chalk.
Oh, there's no black chalk.
But ground chalk.
Yeah.
So that you can sprinkle in your water. How whether it was supposed to make the water right, I don't understand. But lest we forget, the senator for Nairobi kicked a fuss about it. People were brought together. There was pictorial evidence. We actually saw them. And then lo and behold, the pictorial evidence was the beginning of the end. Oh, no, sorry. As they would say, my mistake.
Yes.
Some stones were brought to the place, and I am told they were put in choice places.
And you know
which
what?
had gaping
Contractor
holes.
moved on site. This is Mwiki.
Yes, this is Mwiki. And the people of Mwiki, by the way, in fact, let me add it to your list, you forget list, are still complaining. And they've said this very same thing. And they said they refuse to be silenced. Kura, in this case, is very vocal over the last 2 weeks and making promises about what they are going to do. And the people of Mwiki have said, thank you very much. We've heard it before, but we are not listening to this until we see something actually be done. We are not keeping quiet. And I think that is the kind of, outrage that we need to see happen. This is what is necessary to happen. Because people come and make pronouncements, budgets can be released, but nothing is done. So who are you fooling?
The guest we had not too long ago, the Honorable Martha Karua, said something which actually resonates. She was in a meeting in the days when she was in the opposition, and she made a point. It was a protest point, but it spoke louder than words. She walked away in the middle of the president of the country speaking. She didn't insult the president, just walked away.
She even saluted him.
Without
DP.
The fist. A fist, and then walked away. You know what that fist reminds me of? Of the Olympics during the time when Hitler, it was in Berlin, all right? And the black American athletes, saluted with a black, with the fist up in the air.
Yeah, it was a black fist.
Yes, exactly. Now, we know very well how racist that particular government was.
Yes.
This didn't go down well. To begin with, they won, and it went against the entire philosophy that Hitler had been preaching to his people, that is, the Aryan race was superior.
Oh, yes.
And these black people defeated them clean.
Let's take a look at traffic, what's happening on the roads, and then we come back, the conversation continues. CT Muga is reminding us, lest we forget, and he's saying that the citizenry have a role to play in this. Yes, the government is not doing this and the other, roads are not being sorted out, locusts are coming all the way, they're crossing across the country, they're just, chapping laps, so to speak.
As it were.
And lest we forget, we also have a role to play. 28 minutes to 10 o'clock.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru. Traffic.
Right, so it hasn't really changed, folks. It just means that there's still traffic on everywhere that we've seen it earlier. Langata Road this morning is the mess of the year so far, is what we're being told. Epic proportions there, obviously, because the exits are posing a bit of a problem. An exit where you'd normally have coming out to Huru Highway, and then on the other side where you'd have coming out at Bagavi Way, we have traffic on both of those roads right now. So traffic in Nairobi, as we had expected with the announcements that were made last week, this is what we expect to see today. So it's going to need a colossal amount of patience from everyone. Some people have been on the road for 3 hours now trying to get where they're going. This is what we're going to see through the day, going in and out. So patience is what I'm going to ask for in this case. Let us know if there's something out of the ordinary being traffic this morning. Spice FMKE on Twitter, or give us a call on 0719 012 600.
So here we go.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Lest we forget, CT Muga, Martha Karua has told us that the Kenyan voter also has a role to play.
Yes, and I'm agreeing
Has
with
a huge chunk of the blame to take.
Yes.
So even if you say, let us go and demonstrate and picket and do all those things, let's just first of all start by accepting that this is our mistake.
You do have a very valid point, and we ought to. And having accepted our mistake, this is a conversation. You see, by the time people picket, they've had a conversation. And they've agreed we will go out. No, it's not just we. Perhaps even in having this conversation, then they need to consider what it is that they have brought or what they have contributed to bring about this situation they're picketing about and how they've contributed to it. I in full agreement. But when they've had that discussion, they must make sure that that picketing actually bears fruit. Not just a question of walking up and down, then when it's hot, you go back to your house to have a drink of water. No. It must be purposed. It must be something that actually brings about result. If it means, for instance, going to picket in front of the police station, I'm giving an example. If it means going to picket in front of the UMCA, if it means going to the governor's, whatever it means, it's something that, one, you do that, the media picks it up. When the media picks it up, the media will talk to people. It amplifies it. And you do it and you
consistently.
Now, you were talking about creativity. Bring creativity into it. Do not break the law. But within the law, make sure that whatever it is you want to say is communicated and that your unhappiness is also communicated and with good reason.
I think consistency also plays a major role here because, like you said, you can't come out on Tuesday and then you're done, right? It was an activity for Tuesday morning and then now go back to the way things were.
It may work. Tear gas Mondays worked. They led us to a handshake. But also, look, people in Mombasa have been demonstrating. Is it every Monday or every Tuesday about the SGR issue? They are still out on the streets. Nothing is happening.
Because all they've been doing is picketing in the streets. If there is...
Whom are they speaking to?
Lie on the railway?
No. Go and hang out. Go and...
really?
Go and barricade the governor's office. You have representatives. What I'm trying to say is this. There are people whom you voted to look after your interest. Abdul Somad, the Sharif's son, he is the MP from Vita, and he's been seen there. Marching in the street doesn't cut it. All it does, it shows people marching and showing that they're unhappy. That is not the only leader they have. You want to make sure that people understand.
You want to blockade the governor's office.
Go to the governor's office and say, you know, we're not moving here until this problem is solved.
And we'll not going inside because, like CT said, you want to remain within the law. Of course, you don't want to now start.
You can't break the law and then hope
that they're going to listen to what it is that you're going to say.
It doesn't work that way
because that will be the sticking point.
What you want is two things. You want the media to understand that you have grievances. Two, you want those whom you've elected to actually represent you to understand that you want these problems addressed, not heard, addressed. And if they're not addressed, you are also going to ensure that their lives are not comfortable. Not because you're harming anyone, but you're simply being a nuisance. That's what picketing does. It makes a nuisance of things. It causes traffic jams. It causes what?
So if you know you don't want this nuisance, then you might want to listen to what it is that we are saying.
Because when people picket and the media is there and people are actually asked to speak, the likelihood of them saying things you'd rather they didn't say will come out. And it's not going to come out in a day. If you look at, say, the discussion that we're having with the picketing about SGR, and even when the BBI went there, remember I mentioned, I listened to the conversations and they sounded very well choreographed. And this is what it amounted to. The port has been moved to Naivasha. We know very well it hasn't. But what they meant was that the activities that we related to the port that gave us employment have been moved to Naivasha. They were saying their livelihood has been taken away from them. But beyond saying that, how does that resonate? How is it going to be?
You've just stated something, that's it.
Precisely. Get creative, get the attention of the media, get the attention of the leaders so that they go and take this matter of yours seriously. Okay, Parliament may be in recess, but when it is back in session, if I was in that position, I would use the platform that the people gave me to ensure that this matter of theirs actually brought that an issue, it's addressed, and I make it an issue. You can't make it an issue.
And the thing about consistency is that you're regularly putting out this idea in somebody's mind over and over and over. It's like a child in that's throwing a tantrum in the middle of a supermarket. How often have you seen that a parent has left the child there and gone on to do their business? No, you're going to pay attention to the screaming child. Either you're going to pick them up and walk with them to have a conversation somewhere else, or you're going to give that child what they want. But the constant crying, screaming, throwing up their arms, right, in protest is going to get your attention because it is constant and it is at a
It's
a point,
embarrassing.
It's
What
embarrassing.
What you guys are saying
and
makes
you want
sense.
somebody to hear.
However, when you start saying, for every little matter, every little thing, you need to start picketing and protesting and, raising your voice and
No, not for every little
agitating
matter.
and
But I think there's
activating.
certain things for which you need to do this, and so the result
'Cause
of that
everything
is
is
that
important.
every little matter will be taken care of as it should.
But this
That's
has
what
happened
happens.
before, and this is not what's happening. I mean, people have taken matters into their own hands. People have protested. You're just talking about Mwiki. People went out on the streets for an entire 1 week. Was it 1 week? It's
not enough.
It was
Not
more
enough.
Than, more than a
No.
week.
Not
Not
enough.
enough.
Not enough.
The
Because
leadership
a
came
promise
together.
was
The
dropped.
leadership said, "All right, so we've heard you, and this is what we're going to do." All right, and yet, even knowing that those people have been on the streets before they could come back,
Before
the
what-
leadership has not started doing the
Eric,
work that
before
was
what
supposed to
was
have done.
called the Njoki Ndungu
Bill.
Yes, that's
Law.
how it's known. Before it became law, did we really take these matters seriously? The answer is no.
No.
Because with the law now, there are consequences in the law. Suddenly, people realize, it's actionable. But someone had to take that step and push that particular agenda. In the same way, that's why you elect leaders to push your agenda. Marching with you is one, but this agenda can be taken to a different arena where it can be heard.
Right.
This agenda can be taken by coastal leaders, can go and see the president. The MCA who comes from the Mwiki area and the counterparts can take up this matter with the MPs of Nairobi. These MPs of Nairobi can, believe me,
There is a way
there
out.
is a process
There
you can
is.
follow, and all these people, you can, apart from those people,
And-
the elected leaders can even get into groupings, and this issue can be heard at a much different
What
forum.
about when the desired result is not achieved? Like now in Mwiki, the desired result is not achieved. Leaders have come in, they've told you, they've promised, and yet things haven't moved.
The person,
What do you do?
The person we saw,
And you can't hold an election today. The
No,
election
we
is due
saw
in
the
2022.
senator coming up, and we also saw the picketing and the demonstrations dying down because they believed something was being
What's
done.
being done?
Now, they now know that was simply meant to quieten them. So as they gather strength and gather momentum, they now know that next time they will stop picketing when that road has been built. When it
When
is
it's complete.
complete, then
When
they
it's
say
complete.
complete.
There's a cost to that.
There always is.
There
And the
always
cost,
is.
and the
Yes.
cost is that I have not spent my day earning a living. I have spent my day agitating for this road.
Because this
And
road is
yet-
bad, I'm not earning a living anyway.
And yet there's somebody who is in an office and they're getting paid.
Yes, they are.
My children need to eat tonight. I have rent to pay at the end of this month. I've got school fees to pay. All these things. How do I balance between that? Telling me, to spend an entire week on the road because this is one thing.
Actually,
The next thing we'll talk about now, the local schools. Local schools have an issue. We protest again.
But again, schools have been shut down because some of these problems that we are speaking about.
As of 2 days ago,
The
right?
flooding, schools were shut down. All I'm saying is everything you're saying is true, but the things that we shouldn't actually forget, and because they're still a problem, have brought about these undesired results that we are speaking of. So really, what do you really lose if you actually make it a point of focus that this thing must be done and we must find creative ways of getting attention? Remember, the nuisance factor is supposed to bring you to the attention of those who actually can do something.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. Because there are people who can do something.
Yeah, but they
There
don't
is a
feel
way
that
out.
pressure.
Yeah, and this is the thing.
They
and
are
this
too
is-
far insulated. Even if you came and protested right at the office of the governor, the people who are supposed to do the job don't feel the pressure. It's political pressure what you're raising.
Remember,
What
Eric,
can we do to ensure, for example, that the Director General of Kura or the person who's in charge of Nairobi County under Kura is held accountable?
The senator may have spoken. The Mwiki Road is not the only road that's going to deteriorate because of the rains. If one MCA talks about it and says, look, we anticipate that we ourselves as MCAs may have problems in our wards. If a group of 10 MCAs went to see the head of Kura, you think he's going to ignore them? Do you think he'll just say, okay, because they'll be back again the following day.
They'll come
be back.
tomorrow, and that's the thing.
They'll come back.
This all-
and
this
then they're going
all
to come with the
right.
media, then they're going to come with this.
And
they're
it all,
going to,
it all has to be insulated with the resolve that we are not stopping this thing until we get a result.
I'm
and I
looking
think that's
for a
the problem.
I'm looking for a shortcut solution.
There isn't
That's
a shortcut.
the problem.
Not shortcut, but
That's the
shorter.
problem.
Shorter.
there is no
solution.
shorter.
There's no shorter route to get there.
In
there's
a
no
way
less
in
painful.
which we say we
there's
are
no
still,
less painful.
we are
There's
still
no shorter
using the
route to
law. We're
get
still
there.
using the law, but ensuring that people who are supposed to do their job are held accountable for what they are not doing.
Unfortunately,
For
all
instance,
other avenues have
sign
been
a
tried.
petition, go and take this petition and say, we want so-and-so out of office.
A petition on a piece of
And take
paper
them
that
to
will,
court
that will serve on
out
somebody's
of
desk,
office.
and there's nobody standing behind that petition.
Yeah, over time,
Human
these things
bodies in
become
front
things.
of you, human bodies in front of you, speaking over and over and over again, using other platforms upon which this same information can be shared over and over and over again. Agitation, of course, means it bubbles to the point where you're not able to sit with it anymore. Either you will take it to the individual that can do something about it, or at least you will open the door for more conversation and then take these people to the place where this decision can be made. That's what it does.
Why is it that these roads are not being constructed now? There's no rain today. There hasn't been some rain for quite
Even
a
on
number
Sunday,
of days,
there was no
right?
rain.
There was no rain. Why isn't it that we are seeing people on the road?
Because there's
working
no
on
will.
this?
Yesterday,
There you go.
there's
So it's
no
about
will.
will.
Yesterday, did you see what happened at Nyayo Stadium? I'm telling you, Nyayo Stadium has been in a mess, and I can use this as an example. Nyayo Stadium has been in a mess. Swimming pool, zero. Basketball court, leaking. Football field, terrible.
We
But
beat
yet-
we beat the Sudanese in the leaking.
I'm telling you.
Ah.
In the leaking Nyayo Stadium with no space for spectators. It was terrible. Now, yesterday, I'm telling you, people were working on a Sunday. People worked overnight Saturday to get the place spick and span for Wednesday's ceremony. For tomorrow's ceremony. People were laying cement, laying bricks. The grass was being cut with manicure scissors yesterday. because
the
there was
president
because the president drove up and said, "Hey folks, what's going on here?" Somebody being deliberate, focused, saying this needs to happen. Because the eyes of the nation will be upon you if you go to bury a retired president, if you're going to have a service with him in a shoddy looking arena. That's the kind of thing that you want to push for over and over again. Not that we don't have the money to do it. It can be done.
And that's why I want another solution. So yes, picketing raises the issue, and then from that point, after people have picketed for 5 days, 10 days, then they've gone back home. Something else, another mechanism takes over.
Let me
to ensure that the job is done.
Let me prescribe it
because
again.
people are going to fatigue is a normal human.
Let me prescribe it again. It's not just picketing and walking on the bad roads. No. You picket your MCA. You picket the governor's office.
So that when they sit down, they say, they even came here. Yeah.
So it becomes a conversation
that everybody's having.
Yes, and with
it will become normalized.
Yes,
Eric. The guy will be like, mko hapa karibuni wapewe chai na mandazi.
Yes, and the following day they will come with the same thing. What I'm trying to tell you is this: there's a certain level of inconvenience that a large group of people will bring to bear on you, my friend. And a politician understands that at some point they may want to be re-elected, and all that is being asked is something they can actually do. Believe me. There's no one who can withstand that amount of picketing on a daily basis and simply become immune to it.
I'm telling you,
possible.
You want to look at examples that we see around the world. Look at Chile. We've already talked about the fact that in March, there will be a referendum to have constitutional reform. The folks are still in the streets in Chile. The prices of fuel have actually, not the prices of fuel, but the prices of public transport have come down. These fellas stayed in the street for 6 months and they said, no way.
There you go.
We break your...
6 months.
Wait.
Critical mass.
We break your metro. We break all of it. If we're not traveling at this price, nobody is traveling anywhere, right? You got to do something about this. We, the masses who have to use this public transport, you keep increasing taxes on us. We cannot move. But you, the political or rich elite, as it were, are very comfortable. So, referendum, so that constitutional reforms can be made, so that we see certain things can be done, so that then you reduce this gap between the rich and the poor. They said we'll have constitutional referendum in March. The folks are still in the street. Until they see it, they're not going anywhere. That's the kind of resolve that I'm talking about.
In fact, what has dampened the spirit of the inhabitants of Hong Kong is the coronavirus.
If not, they would still be, The youth in Lebanon are still on the street. We've not talked about it, but the Lebanese are still in the streets.
Still on the streets.
There you go. And
and what about the Sudanese?
Still there.
Taking forever for things to work.
Let it take forever. This is what we are saying.
And these are
Let
things
it
on a
take
national
time.
level. Now imagine you're talking about, this certain school here, we require this school to be rehabilitated. We need stuff done on our road. So everybody is picketing around the country. Every village is picketing.
Let the noise be made so that somebody will hear. We can't have
Fatigue
this instant.
sets in.
It's okay. We can't have this instant
Desired
coffee.
result is
you
not
can't have
achieved.
the instant coffee approach to things all the time. That's what has put us in the problem that
Eric
we have
understands
right now.
this, but let me just clarify it for him. We had Martha Karua in the studio, and she was talking about IPPG. There's something that people don't talk about is the number of street protests during that period in time. Guaranteed every Saturday, clockwork.
They'll be there.
clockwork. There'll be tear gas. There'll be clockwork.
Until people started asking, tunaenda kukunywa wapi leo?
Yes.
Tear gas, I mean.
And people metamorphosize. It ceased to be something that people are scared of. We're talking 2017. People would even wait for that tear gas. They would even say, guys, come out. We have to protest. Bring some tear gas. You can't be sitting in the police station. What did it tell you? They were quite ready to continue. Quite ready. Meaning, this thing mattered enough. Did we not see a handshake?
There you go.
Let's take a short break and then open up the phone line so you can join in this conversation. 0719-012-600. Do you agree with what City Muga and Nduoko are saying? That as citizenry, we have a duty to play to ensure that things are done the way they should be done. We've got a civic duty and we can do a bit of civil disobedience to ensure that we push until something happens. But I'm also saying, civil disobedience is one way, but we need something that takes over from that. Once we raise an issue, once we protest, some mechanism that takes over. I'm not sure exactly what, but I'm just saying being on the streets on a daily basis is not going to cut it. We have too many things to worry about on a daily basis. 0719-012-600. It's 10 minutes to 10.
Have never sounded so good.
My favorite songs of the 1980s.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Spice FM, Malindi. Radio, only on 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
Lines are open. 0719-012-600. Also, our social media platforms are taking in your comments. You can comment there. Spice FM KE on Facebook, at Spice FM KE on Twitter, at City Muga, at Nduoko, at Eric Latif. So, civil disobedience, yes, one. Schools, what would we do about schools, City? Floods, it's a natural disaster. Yes, there's a lot that the government ought to be doing, but here you are, you're thinking about, I need a place to sleep tonight. I need a place for my children to sleep tonight. What, you want us to go and camp at the DC's office?
Actually, the DC is your creation. I had actually not even talked about spending the night. I just talked about going to make it uncomfortable for these leaders to go about their business as usual. The presence of a large group of people in your face on a daily basis, believe me, you are not going to continue ignoring them. You can't.
Or in some cases, not in your face. I give the example of Lagos. When I look at Lagos, which is the 7th largest economy in Africa. Lagos City, right? The 7th largest of Africa's economies. They decided that they were going to introduce, or rather scrap the subsidies on fuel. The first day they said, okay, how are we going to do this? This is just Lagos. Now we're talking about the whole of Nigeria. How are we going to do this? And they said, okay, well, you know what? Day 1, let's see. Day 2, Lagosians decided they're not going anywhere. Bank, we will not open. School, we will not go. Public transport will not happen. Market will not open.
Yeah.
So we're all going to sit at home.
Pause with that example because we have Jeff who's on the ferry. Jeff, good morning.
Morning. Hi, sir.
Salama kabisa. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very much.
You can hear what you were talking about.
Yeah, I've been following for the last 2.5 hours.
Yes. What's your view on what City Muga is saying?
I have several things that probably I want to bring forward. Picketing is very important. It's good, but sometimes it needs to be organized. Because I cross this ferry every day for the last maybe 2 years, and I've been seeing these guys that have been picketing here, especially because of the SGR thing. Most of the times I think we have a problem because of guys benefit out of it, and because guys are benefiting or they are being paid to picket, because most of the people that are there are not people that own those lorries and the rest of the things.
They are not the affected people.
They are not the affected people.
Right.
So most of the times you'll find that since they are not the affected people, they are not in they don't have a touch on the ground. The only thing they need is to get their 200 shillings, so that the 200, once they get the 200 or 400 at the end of the day, they go home.
Right.
So it becomes a bit tricky. But picketing, when it is well organized, it can have some very good results. Yes, we can have some very good results. I remember when we were pushing for multi-party, by then I was informed too, and I remember that we were doing it in Nakuru, and we'd run away from school. Especially the Saba thing in 92, we would run away from school and would go throw stones out on the street. That's what I'm saying people should do. But I'm saying that when you're well organized, then you can have good results very fast.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Have a good day.
Thank you.
I do agree, though. I think we've seen some of the most successful protests, lobbying, picketing that we've seen around the world have been highly organized. Yes, there's a lot of funding that's involved when it comes to things like this, and it comes from a lot of members' contribution. However, it's organized. You have got a leader, there's people that somebody rallied behind, and there's shared ideals that people then use to then go forward. So I do agree. It can't just be random people showing up. There are messages that are sent forth, and this reverberates through everybody who is concerned, to at least try and see some kind of change. So yes, I mean, it on its own, it's something that will not work without any kind of organization. I think that's very important in terms of a point that needs to be set out there. So it's not just you and your pals, hey, what are you doing? Let's go. No, it's got to be something that has been organized. It's put out there with resolve as well.
Let's hear from Kariuki in Wakulima Market in Nakuru. Good morning, Kariuki.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good.
We're fine, thank you.
I'm happy to hear you.
We're happy to hear you too.
To hear you too.
I've been listening to you since morning, and I decided to comment a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you.
What you are talking about is something that we have tried to discuss. Somebody else asked me about what can we do about it, and I really told him we can picket even to the 6 months, as you have said. Luca said about 6 months of Venezuela.
Yep.
I don't think
Chile.
even a year in Kenya can change anything. I don't think.
Why?
The only way, I'm telling you the truth, these guys in power knew the trick they are supposed to use so that Kenyans can be diverted. Remember, we are in tribal. We are very much tribal. Remember that. In fact, for a Kikuyu maybe to tell him to go on the street for even 2 weeks is very impossible. You know how they behave. 2, unless some other regions, their leaders agree for them to come to the street, then that is the only time I think these guys can come in. I don't want to mention anybody specifically. Right? Anybody specifically?
Yeah.
I don't think.
So you think picketing will not work in Kenya?
It will not work in Kenya, I'm telling you. It will go just for 2 days or 3, and then they go back to their work. Remember, we are very hungry. We have been subject to slavery by our leaders. Remember that. Are we together?
We are
Yes, we
together.
are.
When somebody asks me, okay then, what can you do if you cannot do this? And I told him, my friend, let's come. If I was the governor today, I could go back to our ward level so that we can discuss with our people who are the problem as residents of this ward. What are we facing in terms of problems?
Kariuki, what brought this discussion is part of the problem that they've had in Mwiki. There's a road that was good. It was repaired. It went into complete disrepair to the point where Matatus stopped moving on that road completely. So the people in Mwiki were protesting.
And that is where we are. That's the component of what I'm talking about. And I was asking that question. I said, and I told him, my friend, if I was the governor today, I could go back to residents of that ward. Let's specify, ward rather than even the constituency itself. Let's go to that ward. Let us understand which is the problem the residents of that ward are facing.
In this case, it's the road.
Let us identify and maybe know the amount of money that is needed to build that particular road.
Okay.
Kariuki, thank you very much. We hear you. Coming to the end of the show, Asante Sana. We'll, of course, tune in tomorrow again and call in. 0719-012-600 is the number that Kariuki has called on. Join us for more conversations tomorrow. Coming up to the top of the hour, it's the end of the show. Time flies, when you're having fun, say goodbye, guys.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Let the conversation continue.
Yes.
A lot needs to happen, of course, in terms of keeping the government in check and making sure that we hold the government to account. Join Monique at 3 o'clock. She'll be taking you home on Spice Drive. And, of course, join the adults in the room at 7 to 10 with, that is Eric, Emmanuel and Barbara. Until tomorrow, good morning. It's 10 o'clock.